We will call to order the Oak Island Town Council regular meeting of September 10th, 2013. The council will now enter into their invocation led by Mayor Pro Tem Jim Medlin, and then we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, what a privilege it is to serve you and to serve our fellow man, and we're truly grateful for the opportunities you give us. Our prayer tonight is that you would guide us, that you would give us clear minds and help us to stay focused on the reason we're here, and that's to serve the people of this community, to be good representatives for them. Thank you for everyone gathered here tonight. I pray a blessing on them. In your holy and strong name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Medlin. First item on the agenda tonight, we have no public hearings. So we have our general comment period. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes to state your comments. If you need an additional 2, you may be given that upon request. And please keep these to general comments, not items on our agenda. We'll have a place for that later. First to sign up is Skip Cox, please.
Good evening, Council, and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Skip Cox. I live at 109 Northwest 25th Street. I'm a relatively new permanent resident, having relocated from Virginia to Oak Island in April of this year. However, I have owned the house on 25th Street since 2006 and am currently building a new house on Southwest 14th Street. The purpose of my attendance here tonight is to inquire if there are specific ordinances on Oak Island that require property owners to maintain their property to a degree that is aesthetically pleasing and hopefully consistent with surrounding properties as long as they are properly maintained. Now that I live here permanently, I have been able to see a great deal of the western end of the island, and I am very disappointed at the condition of the many properties I have seen. Although there are many, I would specifically like to call your attention to 2 of the properties, which are 901 Northwest 9th Street, which is at Yacht Drive, and 100 Northwest 2nd Street at West Oak Island Drive. Both of these properties appear to have been abandoned and are in a very bad state of disrepair. The property on 9th Street was in very poor condition even when it was occupied, and the property on 2nd Street has a car underneath a tarp which is developing holes and has rotted over time. Again, these are just 2 that stand out among the many that I have observed. Most of the others are not abandoned. It just seems that the property owners are not concerned about maintaining the appearance of their property, even though it seems to be occupied. Now, I realize that property owners have certain rights. However, it seems only logical to me that those rights should come with some responsibility to maintain the appearance of the property, and the owner should be held accountable in the absence of fulfilling that responsibility and obligation to the surrounding neighbors. My wife and I love Oak Island. We are completely comfortable with our decision to relocate here, but it concerns us that responsible property owners and the town itself should be subjected to the eyesores on our island that are irresponsibly maintained. Now, just as a side note, since I've been a permanent resident of Oak Island, I have been picking up litter on many parts of the island on a regular basis. I maintain West Oak Island Drive from the light at Middleton to Yacht Drive, and from Yacht Drive to the new bridge almost on a daily basis. I also pick up litter on both sides of North Middleton over the new bridge and in the median all the way to Route 211, which is nearly 4 miles long and 8 miles total. I only mention this to show you to show the Town Council that there are volunteers willing to make a difference on Oak Island in various capacities, especially those that relate to the cosmetic appearance of the island. I feel a sense of pride as a resident when I'm able to make a contribution as a volunteer, But I would also appreciate the support from the town as well in making a similar contribution to the efforts which are sorely needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. And if you don't mind, before you leave, make sure that our town clerk has your telephone number, and our town manager will be in contact with you. Thank you. Next is Richard Bunce.
Richard Bunce, 125 Northeast 26th Street. I'm still stunned by the statement that property owners only have certain rights. I was dismayed to hear the manager's comments last month on the potential for a takeover of the town utility system by Brunswick County. The report seemed pessimistic that the county would find value in doing so. I have commented on this on numerous occasions over the last several years and suspect that this negative outlook is just more of the same old status quo thinking that is prevalent here and never seems to actually fix any problems. See vacuum station cooling and SWRF reuse water disposal, for instance. The two major issues for taking over the town utility system for the county are operation and maintenance efficiency value and the county and town debt service for their portion of the total system. An effective O&M solution requires seeing more than what is currently there. The key is being able to shut down the Fish Factory Road treatment plant and figuring out what to do about the SWRF. The county treatment plant has more than enough capacity to treat the entire island wastewater flow, and I do not believe they have even activated the second 3 million gallon a day section of the plant. Last I checked, they treated wastewater at about half the total cost per total gallon as the town treatment plant, and that shutting down the Fish Factory Road treatment plant would save several hundred thousands of dollars in utility expenses each year. In order to shut down the Fish Factory Road treatment plant, all the island flow would need to be sent to the county treatment plant. For the first several years of the town wastewater project, that was the plan. Then it changed to just all flow west of Country Club Drive. Then it changed to just flow west of the old town of Yopon Beach. Now, depending on the day asked and who was asked, it would either be relatively inexpensive or relatively expensive to change the town collection and or transmission lines to send all the island flow to the county. Hopefully the county is getting their engineers in here to look at this issue to give an unbiased answer to this question. The SWRF is another issue entirely. It would be simple to shut down, except for the grant issue, which the state has already backed off significantly, allowing us to process far less than the total plant capacity. Unfortunately, we are several years down the road and still just basically treating the minimal amount of flow to keep the plant working, and then dumping the treated wastewater right back into the transmission lines to be sent to the county and treated again. The county could achieve further O&M savings by working with all the utility systems with vacuum wastewater collection systems in the county to save money using joint maintenance and operation crews. As for the debt service solution, there is no reason not to continue on as the town is currently doing. The county bills the town for the capital cost of the town's portion of the county treatment system, and the town collects the SDF and remaining portions of the original assessments from town property owners, developed and undeveloped, to cover all the town's new wastewater system debt service and makes payments to the county, state, and revenue bondholders just as it currently does. Were I a revenue bondholder, I would find significantly more security and increased county involvement in the O&M of the town utility system. Now it could be that the county is understandably concerned about having any additional involvement with this town's utility system mess after we have been late paying them their capital charge on several occasions. A poor system design and even worse construction, along with whiny customers not wanting to pay the bill for the system they voted for in the first place, are additional good reasons to stay away from this tar baby. We are all county residents and or property owners, however, and in the long run, maximizing flow to the county treatment plant lowers costs for everyone in the county. I hope they keep that ultimate goal in mind when evaluating this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bunce. That's all that have signed up to speak in the general comment period this evening. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak, please? If not, we'll move on. Next is Council and Mayor reports. Councilor Royal, we'll start with you tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a point of thanking staff, and particularly the Public Works segment of our staff, for the repairs that have been made to the parking lot at Oak Island Pier.
Thank you. Councilor Kaiser, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I attended Paul's in the Park this past Sunday. It was a very good turnout, and Mayor Wallace was one of the 3 judges. It's unbelievable what some of these dogs are trained to do. Some of them do things better than people. It was amazing to see that. So I urge everybody, whether you're a dog owner or not, come out next year. It was fun. That was my first time going. I took Lucy, or rather Lucy had me take her there to walk around, and it was a lot of fun. I'll comment briefly on our situation with some decrepit and bad houses that was just talked about. The fire department, I participated in a live burn this past Thursday where we burned a very old house down. It was a pre-Hurricane Hazel house. And we've got another live burn coming up Saturday the 22nd of this month, 7506 East Oak Island Drive. I encourage anybody that would like to see what the fire department does at the training to come up there. We have an actual area set up where the citizens can watch, and we'll tell you what's going on during that. A lot of people wonder why we do live burns. That is the single most best way for our firefighters to get their skills and to hone and keep their skills, especially because on this island we don't have that many fires. So I invite everybody to come out. And I asked Mr. Foster if I could make this announcement for the fire department. We just found out just 10 minutes ago that our department attained direct delivery status through the State Fire Commission. Now, y'all probably don't know what that means, but that means now we are on equal footing with the community colleges. We can host our own training. We set the standards. We train to our standards for our people here. We're a handful of departments our size in the state that's got that. And we're only the 2nd department in Brunswick County to see that status. So I got to tell you, there's a lot of work. It takes about a year to get everything to go with that, and I've watched what our chief and assistant chief has done. So I invite you to talk to him and congratulate him, because this is something very good for our department, and I'm proud to be associated with our local fire department, especially now that they've achieved that status. That's all I have. Thank you, Steve, for letting me make that announcement.
And Councilman Kaiser, we're going to say, just by virtue of being able to train these folks in-house and get them certified, Chris informed me that we're probably going to save almost $50,000 a year just in training costs.
That's correct. That means now we don't have to send them off duty off the island, because 2 of the 3 shifts are off duty at any one time, and mostly the classes are held one day at a time. So 2 of the shifts are going to incur overtime, but now we can repeat the same class as many times as we want to at each station to keep the cost down. And also we're allowed to train our contract mutual aid departments that are in a perimeter that provide mutual aid to us also. So that's a very, very good thing for us to get now.
Good deal.
I have no report, Madam Mayor.
Councilor Michael.
Madam Mayor, yes, I'd like to say, whoa, what a Labor Day weekend. We had a great craft fair, a lot of people on the island, a great turnout at the park, so I hope we have many more like that. The other thing is, we had a email come through last week, and as soon as I got it, I called Steve up. Cablevision's going to take our Channel 8 TV away unless you have a digital TV. You can get a box from them, and they were going to charge us $9.99 for the box if they mailed it to us. If you went to Wilmington to pick it up, it'd be free. $39.99 if they came out and delivered it. Well, that didn't sit too well with me. We got a lot of seniors on this island. Our Channel 8 station is very important to us. It gives a lot of information out there for everybody. So thanks to Kyle, and I want to say thank you, Kyle. Kyle got on the phone. He talked to them extensively. He worked with them, and now if we call them up, they will mail it to us for free. So also, I'd like to thank Betty, because I called Betty and I told Betty the same thing. This is not sitting well with me. We need to do something. Betty got on the horn. She was right in there with me. And thanks to Betty and Kyle, we've got something settled. And I'll let Betty bring on in her report a little bit more of the details of about the cable boxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Weinkauf. The broadcast of Government Channel 8 will end on October the 8th. To those who do not have this converter box, if you wish to have the converter box, give a call up to Town Hall, 8001, and Kyle can give you the number to call to ask them to ship one to you. They will be free until January of 2015, and then they will be 99 cents a month. So if you still have an analog TV and still need it, you will begin being charged. And as Richard said on Facebook, you can fully expect that to increase over time for that charge for that box. I wish they wouldn't be doing this, but that's their business. That's what they do. The only other, I'm going to wait till next month as far as any other item on my mayor's report. I've got one item that I think is very important for our town. I found out yesterday from a newspaper reporter that there was a meeting tomorrow morning scheduled at the administrative offices of the Brunswick County Complex for an ad hoc committee just appointed by the county commissioners to study the possibility of revising the method of calculating each municipality's share of our share of the sales tax revenue. I won't go into a long discussion of how that's done. Basically, it's done by population or how much each municipality charges in taxes for that particular year. This has been thrown about for years. After long discussions, I found out that Bald Head Island requested that this committee be formed. They got a member on this ad hoc committee because they asked for this committee to be formed. Bald Head Island has a population of about 140 or so. Their ad valorem taxes for this year is over $7 million. In fact, it's almost $8 million. They charge a lot. Town of Oak Island's population is about 6,874. We charge around $6.5 million in property taxes. In discussions with our county commissioner, I discovered that each county commissioner appointed a representative to this ad hoc committee. And with full good intentions, she appointed someone that she knows has experience with sales tax issues, but I voiced my concerns to her that the largest municipality in her district did not receive representation on this committee, and we are the second largest municipality in Brunswick County. Then we got to talk about the meeting tomorrow, and thank you to our town clerk, Lisa Stites, for educating her town council so well on open meetings law, because I discovered that one of my calls was, and I talked to our town manager, when did this happen? You know, how are they meeting tomorrow? I discovered that the committee had decided to meet tomorrow, but the county had not published due notice of this meeting. So after some conversations with the manager and with Commissioner Sykes, and our manager talked to Ann Hardy, they canceled the meeting for tomorrow. The reason I bring this up tonight is that the committee will be scheduling a meeting. I believe it will happen before our next town council meeting, and I would like council consensus to attend those meetings and voice the opinion from the town of Oak Island, number one, that we would like to have a representative on that committee, since, as I said, we are second largest and the largest in her district, and also that we are opposed to any amendment of the method of sales tax distribution as it's currently being calculated. So may I have consensus from council to do that?
In conjunction with that, could we ask our town manager to write the county manager a letter and voice our displeasure with us not having a seat at the table and request one officially?
Very good. Okay.
Could I
Please.
make a suggestion? I need to make this, I would send it to the county manager, but I think the issue would be more with the county board of commissioners. But she didn't really-
Why would you agree that the town manager and I write the letter together and then I forward it to the county commissioners and copy the county manager? Okay. I'm very passionate about this. Okay, and that is my report. Next is presentations, proclamations, and recognitions. I'm going to move our agenda around just a bit. We have a resolution in memoriam of one of our former council members who passed away about 2 months ago. And I would like to see, we have his wife here this evening with us, so I don't want to hold her here throughout all of our presentations this evening before I present this resolution to her. Pardon? You want a copy? Thank you. Lynn? Yes. And I'm going to read this whole thing because outside of serving as a town council member, Joe Jacquet served in many other ways, volunteering for many organizations with his wife Lynn for many, many years. Large contribution to our town. Whereas the town council and citizens of the town of Oak Island are greatly saddened by the death of Joe Jacquet, former council member and resident, on July 17, 2013. Whereas Joe Jacquet served his community on the Oak Island Town Council from 2001 through 2005. Whereas his commitment to community service was evident throughout his lifetime, especially through his service to his alma mater, Dartmouth College, as a selectman, I'm sorry, new contacts, selectman in Hudson, New Hampshire, and as a board member and treasurer for the Brunswick County Habitat for Humanity. And whereas during his time in government service for the town of Oak Island, Joe Jacquet was known for his commitment to fiscal responsibility and efficiency of town services. And whereas he was much respected and esteemed as a council member, and the town of Oak Island has sustained a great loss on his death. Now therefore be it resolved on behalf of the town of Oak Island, its citizens and staff, the mayor and town council, by this resolution and public record, we extend sincere regret to Joe Jacquet's family members for their loss and the hope that his family would be consoled by the memories of his life and achievements. Be it further resolved that this resolution be made a part of the official minutes of the town of Oak Island, and that an official copy of this expression of our deepest sympathy be presented to his family. Adopt this the 10th day of September 2013. Okay, next is presentation of the award of the town of Oak Island, of the 2013 Tree Board Award. Mike, would you please?
Good evening. My name is Michael Hicks. I'm co-chair of the Tree City USA. It's working group now. It used to be the advisory board, but now we're part of the environmental advisory group. On August the 8th, the Oak Island Tree City USA Advisory Board, now working group, received the 2013 North Carolina Outstanding Tree Board Award from the North Carolina Urban Forestry Council. Jane Henderson and I accepted this award on behalf of the advisory board and the town of Oak Island. This award was recognition of the advisory board's efforts over the last 15 years to maintain the character of Oak Island by protecting its trees, and more recently, our efforts to improve the tree ordinance and develop an arboretum. And last but not least, to educate the public on the importance of trees. The advisory board would like to share this award with John Michaud and his staff, as well as many other employees of the town of Oak Island, because we wouldn't be where we are without their assistance and help. So thank you.
Good job with the board. Yeah.
We got a nice plaque.
Nice plaque.
And a hand-carved bowl.
Oh, okay. Well, we can let this bowl be used to hold the candies at the reception area. How about that? Thank you, Michael. Give our congratulations to the committee, please. Next is the presentation of our second RFQ for our comprehensive shoreline management. Mr. Foster, would you please introduce?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Here again, as we proceed along, if you remember back in March of this year, we distributed out an RFQ for looking for a coastal engineering company that could do a comprehensive shoreline management program for us. The board approved that, and we did send them out. We did receive, again, 2 RFQs back, and the second one is tonight. This is Coastal Planning and Engineering Company, and I'm going to introduce Tom Jarrett and Brad and Ken Wilson, and they're the representatives tonight that's going to make the presentation. If you remember, this is going to be a comprehensive shoreline management plan for including the beach as far as erosion control and sand management, Lockwood Folly Inlet, as to what maybe impact that may have, the Eastern Channel, and Davis Canal. So those are the areas of interest that we have, and hopefully these fellows, or our last presenters, will be able to come up with a wonderful plan that will accomplish all these wonderful things. So with that, who's going to be the presenter tonight? Oh, okay, we got 3 for, okay.
All right. Is everybody able to see the presentation?
He'll dim those lights.
All right. I appreciate that. Again, I appreciate the introduction, Steve. I am Brad Rosov. I'm actually a marine biologist with Coastal Planning and Engineering. We're based out of Wilmington, just up the road from you all. And I'm here tonight representing Coastal Planning and Engineering, CP&E, as we'll probably call ourselves throughout the presentation this evening. And we're here to discuss our approach to your comprehensive shoreline and inlet management plan. And with me tonight are 2 other folks, as Steve has already introduced. Tom Jarrett is our senior coastal engineer. He has been with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers before joining us for some 30-odd years. He joined us back in around 2002, so for about a decade or so, Tom has been with us. And he's arguably probably one of the most respected coastal engineers in the state. Sitting next to Tom is Ken Wilson. Ken Wilson is arguably a really good guy. He's a geologist and a project manager with us, and he's been working with CPE for a good 8 years or so as well. And with that introduction, I'll move into our presentation a little bit. Before I dive right into the actual technical approach that we'll go over, and again, all 3 of us will go over our technical approach, let me first give you a little bit of background about our company and who we are. And you'll see on the screen right there that we actually were established as a firm down in Boca Raton, Florida. We started in 1984, so about 30 years or so ago. A few engineers got together and we started working on coastal engineering projects in an area of the country where there's a lot of need. There's a lot of erosion in Florida and a lot of projects began down there. Clearly, there's a lot of erosion issues that go beyond Florida, and over the past 30 years or so, as CPE has carved themselves a niche as one of the premier shoreline protection and coastal engineering firms, we've moved out of Florida. We've started moving up the coast, on both coasts actually. Now we're actually international, but we started up our office here in North Carolina, in Wilmington, in 2002, when Tom joined along with us. And I'll talk a little bit about some of our projects in North Carolina in just a bit. But along the way, over the past several years, we've undergone a couple internal changes. We were purchased out by a larger company called the Shaw Group, and then subsequent to that, once recognized some of the value of our company, the Shaw Group was then even purchased out by another group called CB&I, Chicago Bridge and Iron. The good news for us, kind of the guys on the ground at least, we really haven't seen any changes internally or especially externally for our clients. But basically, we still are working as a niche group. We are still coastal planning and engineering. Our branding is the same. We still have the same expertise that we're able to deliver to our clients over the years. However, now we're backed by a lot more resources. We have a lot more resources at our demand, personnel and staffing and the like. But we still maintain that kind of small niche feel. We're still a group of really what we feel a family of about 55, 60 employees specializing in engineering, geotechnical, surveying, and environmental primarily. And with that, we've been able to really maintain ourselves and grow as a company. And to this day, we see ourselves as really a turnkey company. Coastal Planning and Engineering, based out of our Boca office and our Wilmington office and several other offices throughout the country, we're able to provide all these in-house services to give you, a prospective client, basically a turnkey project to deliver basically the engineered design, all the surveying that goes along with it, all the way to the permitting and environmental within one-stop shop, which is Coastal Planning and Engineering. And to date, you'll see on the screen, we've completed roughly 70 large-scale beach nourishment projects, which accounts for approximately a quarter of all the projects that have occurred throughout the state. So while we are relatively small, we have put a big footprint out there. Now, specifically, again, just before we dive into your approach, just let you know a little bit about, I'm going the wrong way, about our firm in North Carolina and some of our experience here. I jotted down this evening a list of some projects which we have worked on recently over the past several years and really kind of ran out of space. We've done a lot of work. We've written a lot of EISs in support of different beach nourishment projects. Some of the beach nourishment projects have involved inlet relocation or channel relocation. We are working on 2 projects right now. I'm sure you're well aware of the terminal groin issues with the state. We're working on 2 terminal groin EIS projects right now. We've developed, we're working on several EAs or environmental assessments for some beach nourishment projects in the Outer Banks, as the Outer Banks is starting to look forward to actually adding shoreline protection to their environment as well. And we've also, I should also mention, with many of these projects, in fact, I want to say all of these projects, we've started off kind of in baby steps, that we work with a client to first provide a feasibility study or a contingency study to let the folks understand what pathway they're going to go down, what the cost might be, what the options may be. And so then the client can then look further to see if they'd like to implement that project. We've been very successful. We've done a lot of work with doing these feasibility studies, and we've been hired time and time by our clients to actually implement the project as well. At the very bottom of that list up there, we've got a couple other 2 projects I just want to mention very quickly. One, we have experience on the island. We worked a couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago at this point, on helping with your waterway park. I know you were looking to put in a boat ramp at that facility, and we did work to write an essential fish habitat document, which was one of the required environmental documents along the way. We also have a lot of work in water quality. I've managed for the past 5 years a water quality monitoring program in New Hanover County, where we've assessed the water quality with a network of about 7 tidal creeks. And that dovetails nicely into some of the project needs that you all have for your specific projects. So without any further ado, I'll just jump into our project specifically with you all. And on the screen right there is our org chart, our organizational chart, to show you who our team truly is. And I won't dwell on it too much, but basically the bottom line, we will report obviously directly to you, to Mr. Foster. And Tom Jarrett here, sitting here, will really be our project manager from our Wilmington office, leading the charge. Ken Wilson also will be acting as our deputy project manager. But below those 2 folks are our various folks that are in charge of engineering, geotech, permitting, which is really all of our environmental work, our GIS work, and our modeling. Also, survey should be up there as well. We also have a surveying component. But the important take-home message on this is for you to understand that all of this is done under the auspices of Coastal Planning and Engineering. We don't have subs. We don't have other groups that we'll be working with. We can work together directly. When I'm working on the environmental work, I've got Tom right down the hall from me, two stops over, where I can chat with him about any issue that arises. So there's a certain efficiency that we bring to the table here with our opportunity. So now kind of diving into the meat of the matter, I'll hand this off to Tom in just a few slides here, but to set the stage for you, we're looking at your comprehensive shoreline and inlet management plan in basically 3 components that we've broken it down to. In your RFQ, we really see clearly that there's 3 components: the comprehensive beach and shoreline management plan, but also along with that, of course, as Steve had mentioned, the inlet management plan. So we're looking at Lockwood's Folly, how to manage that resource there. And then finally, third is the Davis Creek management goals and objectives that lie within there as well. So to break it down with that, we're going to talk to you about our engineering approach, our environmental approach, and our geotechnical approach to meld this all into one project. And our objective, basically, as described on the screen, is to develop the plans, develop the permitting roadmaps, which is very clear and important for you all, and most probably important is our cost to implement each plan each component of the plan. So real quickly, basically, we will meet those objectives to develop the plans and the permitting roadmaps and the costs and whatnot by looking forward and basically bringing forward our expertise, which lies in those three main categories: environmental, engineering, and geotechnical. And so real briefly, I'll go over this environmental approach. One slide won't take up very much time at all. But again, with those three components, the way we see it for the environmental side is we would truly look at two different paths that we would go down, two different permitting paths. The first would be combining that the beach and shoreline along with the inlet management plan. There's some very inherent overlap with the two. When we're looking at Lockwood's Folly and we're looking at the beach nourishment, there is obvious overlap on the two. And in doing so, we have a lot of experience working on projects, which we do just that. We have worked with a lot of inlet management plans that have dovetailed into beach nourishment, and we foresee that sort of permitting approach for those aspects of the project to work well together. And in those, for the actual permitting approach, which we had outlined in the feasibility study, we see clearly the need for an individual permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, as well as a CAMA major permit from the state. There's also a number of other clearances and permitting aspects that go along, but those are the two kind of major aspects. Along with that is a level of environmental documentation, of course, as well. That's when we're talking about the environmental impact statements or environmental assessments, the EAs and the EISs. And we feel with our experience, we could hopefully bring together the various stakeholders or the various agency representatives, preliminary, bring them in early on in the project, have what we call an interagency meeting, and scope out this project, explain to them exactly what this project is entailing, and explain to them why we feel that an environmental assessment, which is a much scaled-down version of an environmental impact statement, would be clearly the most feasible, expeditious, cost-effective, and environmentally correct thing to do. So with that aspect, we would also look forward towards the Davis Creek management plan, and for there we'd look at a number of different approaches. We would be looking at, and Tom will get into this a little bit in his presentation, but there's different ways to basically meet the objectives of maintaining navigability as well as maintaining the water quality. And this could mean things such as opening up connectors to the ICW or even the ocean, possibly. There's other mechanical approaches to look as well as far as aeration. And there's different levels of permitting that would necessitate that. All these different variables would be clearly expressed within the feasibility study for you. And we'd also let you know the time frame for these approaches, the costs, and what level of environmental documentation you would need. And so with that, I'd like to pass it over to Tom, who's going to give you a semi-brief presentation on the engineering approach. And Tom, just so you know, the down button is where you advance.
Okay. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you folks this evening. Been hanging around this park for quite a while. Started working with the Corps in 1966. Developed the first shoreline protection project for the town of Oak Island. We put together the General Design Memorandum in 1974, which covered the town of Long Beach and Yopon Beach at that time. Of course, y'all merged. So I've had quite a bit of experience working not only with the beaches, but also with Wilmington Harbor. I was actually the author of the current the previous sand management plan. I guess the Corps is in the process now of modifying that. But the original concept of the sand management program for Wilmington Harbor, I was involved with the development of that while with the Corps. So basically, our engineering approach here is going to link shoreline management and inlet management all in one. As Brad intimated in his presentation, the permitting would then include both elements of the project in one comprehensive EA. And I'm not going to go over in detail on this slide exactly what we propose to do. We'll cover this as we move on. But again, the important and I think the strategic goal for all of this, if you look at about the bullet next to the bottom, we talk about a static line static vegetation line exception. I think that's the biggest need that this town faces. Based on what I can see, just a preliminary look-see at the beach behavior, you've got a fairly decent condition now in terms of your beach stability and storm protection and that sort of thing. So we need to put those projects in compliance with the requirements that you need to meet this static vegetation line exception. And our firm has actually done quite a few static lines. We did all the static line exceptions for Bogue Banks. We did Carolina Beach and Wrightsville Beach, so we're very aware of all the requirements for that. First part of updating or at least formulating your plan is, of course, to go back and look at the behavior of your project or your shoreline over the past few years. You do, of course, you had 3 beach nourishment projects, all under different authorities that have taken place. The one on the east end is from the Wilmington Harbor Sand Management Program, and that should continue. The Sea Turtle Habitat Project was a one-time deal with material removed from the Yellow Bank area, and it doesn't have a maintenance component to it, so that's one thing that needs to be addressed. The same thing holds true for the Section 933 project on the west end of the island. That was a one-shot deal with material from Wilmington Harbor. So in formulating the plan for your shoreline management, we need to look at, how well have those 3 projects been behaving, and with that knowledge, then you can extrapolate that into how well future beach nourishment projects will behave. We don't need a lot of numerical modeling in this component of the plan development because we have the prototype data available to us. We don't have to guess and fritz around with models. We can look at what the real world is telling us in terms of how a beach field behaves along this shoreline. And if you look at what the state data shows, and that's what this plot is, the shoreline change rates have been relatively small, but of course this covers the time period from 1949 up to the 2009. So there's a long history in here, and it doesn't really tell us what's been going on short term. So one thing that we need to look at is the recent survey data that the Corps has done since these fields went in. Also, there's LIDAR data, which is airborne surveys that are taken. That information is available we can use to evaluate how these beaches are behaving. And once we do that, then we can pretty well pinpoint where erosion hotspots may be and what the nourishment requirements would be for a much larger scale project. Or at least we'd identify the nourishment requirements, which is a key component to meeting your static line exception ultimately. One of the things we'd like to do, even though the beach in a lot of places, particularly the sea turtle habitat, is in excellent shape, we need to go back and look at the shoreline condition from one end of the island to the other to make sure that the people on the east end have the same amount of protection as the people on the west end. So we have a way of going in and looking at the vulnerability of coastal development using a model called S-Beach. That's a shoreline recession model the Corps developed. And it gives you some idea of how far inland a particular storm will impact the development. And then based on that, we can go back and use that same model and put some beach fields out in front of those homes and then run the model again and see how big a beach field we need to protect structures. And we can do that all on the island, various segments, and we can determine, well, how much material do we need on the west end to meet the same level of protection that we have on the east end. So we can balance this thing out so that the taxpayer on the west end of the island is getting the same bang for the buck as the taxpayer on the east end of the island. The major thing that we need to look for, of course, is sand. In order to build these projects and maintain these projects, you've got to have sand. Well, we have reservoirs of material being deposited in both Lockwood's Folly Inlet, back through the waterway, also on the east end in the Cape Fear River entrance. So the Lockwood's Folly management aspect of this would try to link not only the inlet bar channel, but with creating a channel through a new channel, a navigation channel through Eastern Channel, and connect it to the intercoastal waterway just at the mouth of the Lockwood's Folly River. In this particular instance, the Lockwood's Folly Inlet is being maintained by or had been maintained by the Corps just using side cast dredges, a shallow draft type dredge. The Corps actually authorized this project to 12 feet. The Corps was maintaining it to 8 feet. But there's authorization on the books that allows that channel to be maintained to 12. We believe that given that authority, that it would be relatively easy to go ahead and increase that maybe a couple of feet. Say you dredge the project to 12 feet, 150 feet wide, and with a 2-foot over depth, that particular depth allowance plus your tide range would allow an ocean certified dredge to be able to come in here and move material out of the channel and put it on the beach. Of course, there's complicating things here with anything that you do with Lockwood's Folly Inlet, because your neighbor to the east is also looking at a management plan involving our terminal groin. So all this stuff has to be linked together and coordinated together, but we're well in a position to kind of link these all together. Development of plans, particularly the inlet channel, the eastern channel, looking at issues in Galloway Flats where you have some oyster management issues and shoaling, as well as the environmental conditions and water quality conditions up in Davis Creek. All of this would be looked into or would be included in one comprehensive numerical model. It's a Delft 3D model. You've probably heard about it. We're applying that same model to looking at the terminal groin alternative for Ocean Isle. We've used it for Figure 8 Island. We also used it for some plan formulation for Topsail Beach, looking at their bar area. But it's a good model, and it can be used to look at the impacts of channel dredging, impacts on flows, impacts on circulation, flushing. So once we set this model up, it would be it would encompass the whole area here on the east end and down along behind Holden Beach some distance, but we would include the Davis Canal, the Galloway Flats, Eastern Channel, Lockwood's Folly Inlet in this one model. So with the one model set up, once we've got things calibrated, we can look at various sundry alternatives and look at the impacts of not just one action, but what are the impacts of multiple actions to get a comprehensive look at what the environmental impacts would be. That's the kind of information that Brad would need to write into his EA. And again, the goals are up there, and again, we'd be looking at deeper water channels in both Lockwood's Folly, Eastern Channel, looking at improvements in Galloway Flats. Some of this material would probably be good, particularly inlet material, Eastern Channel material, would be good for beach maintenance. Again, we'd have to be careful how we share that sand because there's two neighbors vying for the same sand source. But it can be worked out. So there's a source of sand here that can be used, can be shared, and can be managed. I mean, that's what this is all about, managing the inlet in such a way that we benefit both sides of the inlet. Okay. The other issue, and it's a hot button issue, and that is what do we do with the Cape Fear River entrance? Of course, the Corps has reformulated their sand management plan, and I don't know that it's been published yet, but there are some, I think, aspects of it that are going to change from what it was when I was there. They're going to now, I think, during each maintenance operation, pump material both ways, rather than wait this interim period and only put material on Oak Island every 6 years. So that's my understanding of the plan. So one thing we would want to do is take a look at that plan and make sure that what they're planning on doing is the best thing that is the most beneficial thing that could be done for the east end of Oak Island, including Caswell Beach. The main thing we wanted to kind of look at, and I've touched base with Eric Olson on Ballhead Island, he's their engineer, about the possibility of putting in what I call a channel widener on the Jaybird Shoal side. In other words, try to intercept all this sediment moving off Oak Island, flooding into the navigation channel, forcing the channel over towards South Beach or West Beach on Ballhead. Maybe there's a way we can go in there and intercept this material, pick it up, dredge it, put it on both Ballhead and Oak Island and Caswell Beach before it gets to the navigation channel. Still going to dredge the same volume of material, but we're dredging it over here and not in the middle of the channel. So it seemed like a possibility of doing something like that. I know Ballhead has through Eric Olson, has already built their Delft 3D model, so perhaps we could hook into their model and apply it to look at these alternatives. Anything we would do, we would work very closely with Eric and his outfit so that we don't, do something that would be a detriment to Ball Head or Caswell Beach or Oak Island. So we want to coordinate all this together. And not to be left out is we got to coordinate all this with the Corps, because they're, after all, the ones that are responsible for maintaining the navigability of the channel, and that's their primary goal. And so we would have to work together with all the entities associated with that. But I think, given the limited sand resources that are available offshore, and Ken's going to talk about that in a little bit, this particular spot, and plus the material you get out of Lockwood's Folly, may be enough. And again, we hadn't done the numbers, but there may be enough material collected in both of these ends that if you pick it up and distribute it properly, you can probably maintain the beaches that you have and not have to go to some far offshore source to get a humongous amount of material. I think the Corps was looking in somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 million on the east end and $3 million on the west end. And if you look at maintenance, you're probably up to 30-some million cubic yards of material. I think we could probably formulate a plan that would satisfy your needs. Again, you're paying for it, so you don't have the Corps' help to pay for it. So this project has to be tailored to your economic capability. And that would be our goal, is to formulate a plan that the town could afford, but would still provide a level of protection from one end of the island to the other that would provide a reasonable level of storm damage reduction. Not 100%, but it would provide a reasonable level of storm damage reduction. Again, I just throw this up here. These are the requirements that you have to meet for a static vegetation line exception. The key component, as you face it right now, is you get some projects authorized and underway. First cost of implementing these projects may not be all that much, because again, once we look at your condition of your beach and the way those beaches are behaving and the ongoing nourishment on the east end, I think you'll find that in order to keep these projects up, you don't need all that much material initially to get them going. So we have a first cost of implementation. Once you do that, then you have to have a nourishment plan. You have to implement that nourishment plan, and you have to have a financial plan laid out to demonstrate to the state that you can afford to keep this thing maintained. After the first 5-year passes, once you get these projects authorized, for lack of a better word, you monitor the performance for 5 years, you demonstrate to the state that you can maintain these things, then you fill out your application, and I think you're good to go. That's pretty much it from that, so we'll turn it over to Ken, and he'll talk about your sand stuff.
Sand is not that exciting, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with it. We just really have one slide. But, ideally, with all the experience that we've had in North Carolina with similar projects, ideally what you'd like to find is a renewable source of sand, and that's really what Tom focused in on, some of the Lockwood Folly and the navigation channel aspects of that. Steve's got some experience with that. We formulated a project up at North Topsail Beach where they're continuously going back to an inlet, repositioning the inlet, redredging that inlet, but it's very good quality sand that's coming out of the inlet, and that'll be their long-term sand supply. If we can work something out with the other option that Tom mentioned with the shoals at the Cape Fear River, that's another renewable resource of sand. In looking at this, and this will all be something that goes through in the feasibility aspect of the study, we'll take a look at those resources, and we'll try to look at right now they're sort of conceptual, but in doing some of this coordination with other communities and other resource agencies, trying to figure out the feasibility of the Lockwood Folly aspect of sand resources and the Cape Fear River sand resources. If those things don't look like they're playing out, we will need offshore resources. But I just want to tout sort of our ability of going offshore, using existing data. There's an awful lot of data for you all that have looked at the Corps GRR. They've taken a lot of vibrocores out there. They've done a lot of geophysical work. The BIMP, the Beach Inlet Management Plan that the state developed, they kind of condensed all that in and came up with a couple of other options or try to focus in on these sand resources. But we've got a lot of experience looking at Corps of Engineers data, the geotechnical data specifically. We did this for North Topsail Beach. We've done this for Ocean Isle Beach. We're doing it right now off of the Outer Banks, looking at their sand resources. So I feel real confident that we can come in. We've got a lot of experience with looking at these similar projects from the permitting and the engineering aspect, and trying to figure out if these inlet solutions are going to be something that's going to play out, or do we need to look at this data in the offshore area and try to identify some borrow areas there. This is just a map that was pulled out of the Beach Inlet Management Plan. So this is some of that data that's already been dissected by the state, trying to hone in on specific sand resources. You can see there's one here off of Holden Beach, but interestingly enough, that these areas are so large that a lot of times when you've got wide space data that's 5,000, 6,000 feet apart. When the Corps is looking at a sediment resource for these projects, they're looking at huge volumes because they're trying to look out for a 50-year project and things like that. To try to identify sand for a specific project, especially when we focus in on our priority as only being Oak Island, that we want to figure out a solution for your town. And once we focus in on that, we're not looking at such huge areas. So it really only takes a couple of vibrocores in these widespread areas to find a resource that's worthy of going out there and doing further exploration. The offshore borrow area that we identified at North Topsail Beach was, the Corps had identified like 15 borrow areas out there, and the one that we identified wasn't even part of one of their areas, and it was a much deeper area. So just kind of touting this idea of we certainly have the capabilities of looking at this existing data and trying to tease out if there are other possibilities. One of the things I wanted to mention about this map is that I believe Holden Beach is looking at a beach nourishment project right now, and their borrow area is just east of Lockwood Folly Inlet, so sort of offshore of the west end of Ocean Isle Beach. So there are deposits out there, and the data exists. Certainly, it just takes another focused look and resetting your priorities on specifically what's best for Oak Island. This is just kind of a wrap-up slide. This is the end of our presentation, but just to kind of bring it home. I think one of the aspects that we'd like you to sort of take home from this presentation are our superior qualifications of the team. Those are all laid out in our project experience and our resumes in the actual submittal. Superior local knowledge, I think some of the creative ideas that Tom had come up with in the engineering aspect of things, specifically the fact that channel at Lockwood Folly is authorized to 12 feet, that's sort of a gem. A lot of these shallow draft inlets are only authorized to 8 feet. So if we really can look at a way to utilize the fact that the original authorization's to 12 feet and add on some of this over depth and bring in an ocean certified dredge, there aren't a whole lot of inlets in North Carolina that are already set up to have a dredge come into the inlet and pump that sand onto the beach. You guys have seen the side casters out there. That's the way it's normally done. And that's sort of wasted sand when they're not putting that sand on the beach. So that really touts some of that local knowledge. The other idea with the channel widener, that kind of goes to this idea that we've looked at a lot of projects in North Carolina. Tom's got specifically a lot of experience with the Corps projects. Some of the other things in talking to town councils all the time, we know that cost is very much the key. You all are looking for efficiencies. You want the best bang for your buck. I certainly believe that our qualifications are just as good, if not superior, to anybody else that you'd be looking at. But I also think there's a high degree of value in the amount of projects that we've worked on, specifically in North Carolina. Anybody that's been through one of these projects will tell you that something unanticipated will happen in the formulation. But the amount of projects that we've been through with the North Carolina regulatory agencies and with some of the specific things that you might be dealing with inlet management plans in North Carolina, or hard bottom issues offshore of North Carolina. There's a lot of hard bottom out here. We've done projects where we had to deal with hard bottom. We know what the agencies are kind of looking at. We know what to propose to make sure that you're not going to get hit up with this huge monitoring plan that no one's ever going to look at. We understand what the value of the resources are, and we can hone in on making sure that we're going to do the best job of balancing the environment and the cost all at the same time. So, with that, not only the 70 projects all over the nation that we've done, but the amount of work that we've done in North Carolina, I think, is even more relevant to what value you all will get out of selecting our team. So, with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does any council member have any questions, please? Councilor Royal?
I know all the answers to my questions.
I have a question.
Please.
I just wondered if you would care, not to really put you on the spot too much. It does, but you can just say that. But you mentioned that you would, the type of projects you would be looking for would be nourishment to a reasonable degree, and not necessarily the type of grand scale that the Corps GRR has been looking at. And I just wondered if you could hazard any kind of an estimate as to the cost of an approach that you might have per mile of beach for the.
Interesting enough, we were discussing that on the way up here.
No. I mean, I could give you some numbers, but I wouldn't want to be held to them at this point. Because,
well, I understand that.
If you look at, again, we haven't really gone in and looked at what the shoreline's been doing lately. If you look at the state data, it looks great. But I know you got areas out there that are not doing that great. I think some of the 933 projects are getting close. The dunes about to fall or be impacted. So there are some areas along there that are going to need some additional material, some buildup, and all that sort of thing. But, yeah, to sit here and hazard a guess, I mean, you got 9 miles of shoreline, over 9 miles of shoreline. Typically these core projects can cost you, what, $5 million a mile or something like that. You're not looking at anything close to that because you've got a great beach in the sea turtle habitat. The east end is being maintained, and it seems to be in fairly decent shape. So the main focus, or the biggest amount of material you'd have to put on the beach, is probably on your west end. Maybe of course, that's a pretty good chunk of the island. It's maybe half the island, but no.
Well, that's what I wanted to hear. Really, was that we're not looking at anything close to that.
We're not looking at
$5
the
million
Cadillac.
per
We're
mile.
looking at the Model T, or not the Model T. We're not looking at the Edsel, but we're looking at something that will give you a reasonable level of protection, but not, the core Cadillac, if you will, version. You can go that way if you got Uncle Sam paying 65% of the cost, but you don't.
But we don't.
So you've got to look at maybe what your 35% might buy you.
I appreciate it, though. That's a good answer.
And just to follow that up, I think part of that is working with you all and understanding what financial capabilities you all have. We'd be able to provide an array of understanding what level of protection for what amount of money is at hand. So we would be able to provide for you, we can give you this Cadillac that will give you Cadillac protection, but at the same time we can customize downward as need be to meet the goals and the objectives that you all have within your financial capability.
I got a couple of things. Number one, based on looking at this overall project, particularly the ocean front, how long do you think it would take the necessary permitting to do any major work out there for if you had to go through an EIS versus an EA?
Yeah, I mean, we've in some of the projects that we've taken on recently, I think if there's not something very controversial about the projects, the agencies are moving away from the requirement to do an EIS for every single project. We're looking at 3 different projects up in the Outer Banks right now, and all 3 of them, the agencies are sort of giving us the green light that we can go forward with an EA. One of the things that Brad mentioned with some of the looking at the channels that are already authorized, we've used for New Hanover County for Carolina Beaches Beach Nourishment Project. They were interested as part of a contingency plan to get their own permits to be able to do what the Corps has historically done. Because if at some point in time the Corps has no money whatsoever to help with those projects, it would probably be more efficient for the county to hire their own contractor to go out and design the beach and construct the beach rather than going through the Corps of Engineers. But they would need their own permits to be able to do that. So we use what's called a General Permit 291 to obtain those permits for basically a core project that was already authorized, which would be similar to what we try to do with Lockwood Folly or this channel widener, perhaps. But basically, for the Carolina Beach project, we were able to get permits through that 291 process in 10 months. So, you know, it really depends on the scale of the project. If we have to go offshore and look at new resources, we'd probably be in something like an EA. Hopefully we could avoid the controversy, you know, like something like a terminal groin is clearly an EIS, but hopefully we can keep the project to something in the neighborhood of an EA, which right now we're estimating, you know, somewhere around 18 months to 2 years to try to permit.
I'll let Brad step in, but of course we've had pretty good success with 2 channel relocation projects, one in Bogue Inlet and one in New River Inlet that just got completed. Those projects involved EISs, and primarily because it was kind of the first time those kind of projects were done. But I think with the success of them, particularly Bogue Banks and now the recent completed New River Inlet channel relocation, I think we'll be able to convince the resource agencies that the EA process is sufficient. And that way we should avoid a lot of the controversy that we got into in some of these early formulations, as Steve probably well knows, the problem we ran into on North Topsail and getting that thing finally through. But that was a complicated project because it included inlet management, it also included offshore sand resources, it included the hard bottom issues that Ken talked about. So it was a complicated project. If we can limit this thing to doing stuff that the Corps' been doing in the past, except in the Cape Fear River entrance, maybe modifying a little bit, and Lockwood's Folly doing exactly what the Corps is authorized to do, I think we can avoid a lot of the time constraints and time issues that we ran into in permitting some of the other things. And before I leave the Cape Fear River entrance, the Corps had, in fact, on 2 occasions put in channel wideners on the west side of the Smith Island Range, so it's not a precedent-setting thing. That's been done in the past, and so if it's permitted or approached that way and demonstrate to the resource agents, hey, look, this is not something new, it's just a redo of what's already been done, and I think we can probably overcome some of the permitting obstacles that may have been there otherwise.
Can I ask one more
Please.
question? Eastern Channel, what's the problem? Would there be a problem in dredging that, do you say now, or you think you can do it under navigation or environmental basis?
Well, you know, when we started talking to you years ago about the Eastern Channel project, and I guess the one the county was looking into, the consensus at that time was approach it as a navigation primarily because of the state funding potential. I think the state grants for navigation project, and I may be wrong, 75%, and if you go for an environmental, it may be like 50%. So the recommendation was to approach this as a navigation project, but knowing full well that we're looking to try to improve the environmental aspects of Eastern Channel, restore an oyster management area back there. The same with Galloway Flats. So I think from the work that was done by CSE in looking at Eastern Channel, I hadn't really seen it, but I think there's a lot of beach-compatible material that would be removed initially to construct a channel from Lockwood's Folly in through Eastern Channel and up into the AIWW. So a lot of that stuff could be put onto the beach. Any maintenance material that would come back there would be joined with material that you take out of Lockwood's Folly Inlet and combined with, you know, disposal on the adjacent islands. I better say the adjacent islands, because if you take sand out of the inlet, you're probably going to have to share some with Holden Beach. It's not yours; it's both parties. So there'd have to be a sand sharing agreement worked out. But there's also the shoaling back in the AIWW. You know, it's every little bit of piece, you know, comes together, and pretty soon you're talking about a pretty substantial amount of material using known sources, not having to go somewhere offshore and hauling it 5 or 10 miles to the beach, which is pretty expensive. So if we can keep these inlet sources viable, then your costs are going to be manageable.
Councilor Weinkauf?
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I do have one question I'd like to pose to you, because there was nothing in the materials that I recall, and although, like I said before, I think I know the answer to all my questions for some conversations we had several months ago. And there's been some discussion here tonight about what the ultimate project cost might be to the town. but there's no information as to what your cost to the town may be. Could you address that?
We did a feasibility study for Ocean Isle Beach before they got into their Terminal Groin study. So, as something kind of, as Brad mentioned, a lot of these projects kind of stair-step through. That feasibility study was in the range of $100,000. I think it was a little less than $100,000. We recently did something similar for the town of Duck, where we were looking at some of the S-Beach analysis that Tom mentioned, where we're looking at how vulnerable are the shorelines to specific storms, say the 5-year return interval storm, the 20-year return interval storm, the 50-year return interval storm, and then putting different beach fills in front of that to basically give them a menu of, well, if you want continuous protection from the theoretical 50-year return period storm, you're looking at a project that's, $40–50 million. Or, if you think you can only afford to provide for the 10-year return interval, you're down in the $20 million range or something like that, just hypothetical numbers. But that study was also in the range of about $115,000. There's several different aspects of this. So I would assume that it's probably going to be a little bit more than $115,000, but probably somewhere between $100–150 for the feasibility aspect of this. The other thing that we've been talking about internally is really knowing that the static vegetation line is driving a lot of this process. We would continuously be looking for that low-hanging fruit to say, if we did this one step, we could move the process forward, and we could document the plan, and we could put everything on paper, and we can come up with the sand resources, and how fast can we move towards that? So as far as implementing whatever the comprehensive management plan comes up with, the variables in it itself make it very difficult to put a cost on that. But I think what we would be focusing on is those low-hanging fruits, and how quick can we get a permit if there's a place that needs to have sand on it before we can apply for the static vegetation line, or is it really just documentation that we need to be able to get to put in for the static vegetation line? We had some discussions that there may be, because the beach right now had been built with 3 different projects, there may be certain aspects that there's very little that would need to be done to apply for that static vegetation line, today. So is that something that the council be interested in? Low-hanging fruit, let's get that, whatever, step 1, 2, and 3 are, let's get that done quick and then apply for it. And at least, a portion of the town has that ability to get the static line exception in place. So.
Yeah, along those lines, the town could probably get a static line exception for the east end, portion of the project on the east end, because it's very similar to what Atlantic Beach had. Atlantic Beach was receiving material from maintenance of the Morehead City Harbor. They had a big wide beach, and the Corps was putting sand over there, so they wanted to apply for their static line exception, and we did for them, and they got it. So the situation on the extreme east end is very similar, but the turtle habitat and the 933 project are standalone, no maintenance type issues there, so they would still be hanging out there with their static line. Talking with the Division of Coastal Management, they were in agreement that even though these are 3 separate projects, that you could probably get a static line exception for all 3 with one application. So there's probably some economies of scale of waiting and trying to get plans in place and then going for the static line exception one time, rather than going for a piecemeal on the east end and then doing 2 others later. But again, you could do it now. You can actually certainly could go in and apply for that static line exception on the east end, and under the guise of the Corps' inlet management program through Cape Fear River entrance, I'm pretty sure you'd meet all the criteria as long as you have the financial capability to, well, you don't have to pay anything, so it would be pretty easy to demonstrate that you can afford that one.
I think one of the goals here, and I can't speak for each of the board members. I know that Councilor Royal and I have had conversations, and Councilor Painter, who both have been heavily involved in this type of work in the last number of years for you and last couple of years for you. But one of the real goals I think that we're all kind of looking for is to get this certified as a FEMA engineered beach. And I think that that would be something that would probably be one of the basic things that we're looking at praying. Am I speaking out of turn, or is that?
That is.
That's mine.
Well-
That goes hand in hand with the static line exception. If you can't get one, you're not going to be able to get the other.
Yeah, I'm talking about for the whole.
Right.
Certainly, that would be something that would come out of it. If you had these projects formulated, you had your plans, and you had a maintenance plan in place, and you demonstrate to FEMA that you were actually operating these projects in accordance with a certified plan, then that's basically all you really need from FEMA to demonstrate to them that you have an engineered beach. There is no such thing as a certificate from FEMA saying you have an engineered beach. Congratulations. There is no such thing. But there are criteria that you have to meet in order to be eligible for post-storm recovery assistance.
We just finished up the first phase of the North Topsail Beach project, and clearly, you know, whenever somebody's talking about one of these beach projects, you know, an opponent will come up and say, why are we going to pay all this money to put the sand on the beach? One storm could take it all away. Well, that's what the FEMA plan is for. It's not necessarily a maintenance plan, but it is for if that huge storm comes in right after you build the project and it wipes your project out, then you can say, look, this is designed infrastructure that we put in place, and it falls under the public assistance program. But a lot of towns do like that security of having, you know, whatever they can do to get out in front of the process for when this event happens. So for the town of North Topsail Beach, we just got finished putting together a maintenance plan, and it says this is what's been done, this is what the engineering you know, aspect of or engineering justification of the project was. This is how we plan on paying for the maintenance. This is what we're going to do each year for beach profile monitoring to monitor the beach, so that everything is set in stone, and you know, there would be very little question if that event happened and FEMA comes in. They've got everything on paper. I know Carteret County's done the same thing. They've got a established plan. But everybody that we're working with these days, they're interested in the same thing. They want to make sure that if that happens, you know, will this qualify? And so it's almost become inherent in all these projects that through the process we're stepping through, we make sure that we're putting those things in place and documenting them properly is really where it comes down to, so that they're ready for that. If
Topsail Beach had, just echo what he's talking about, Topsail Beach had a plan in place. They renourished the beach, and it was, I forgot which hurricane it was.
2010, 11.
It was a main hurricane. Spent $7 million on the nourishment. After the storm, they suffered sand losses, and they got a check from FEMA under their PA program for $6 million to go back and fix it. I don't think y'all didn't do that project, but they're sitting there waiting to get that done right now. So it's very important.
Holden Beach has gotten public assistance a number of times for FEMA projects, and Carteret County's done it several times as well. So.
Yeah, just a comment, if I may. In the Cape Fear River Inlet, I mean, basically what has happened over the course of history, and this is just kind of a reality check for me with you, Tom, because I know you know a lot of the history there. It has essentially eliminated, for all practical purposes, any sand bypassing that's occurred around that, from going from east to west or north to south, depending on how you configure that in your mind, which is a great deal of what has exacerbated the erosion problems long term on Oak Island. Certainly the initial, the 933 project, the dredge spoil disposal that occurred helped to offset some of that, but it doesn't carry on into the future. The way the Corps is looking at the sand management plan, and Bald Head side gets Bald Head side and Oak Island side gets Oak Island side, still doesn't address the fact of the matter that that entrance channel now functions because of the frequency of the dredging and the way that particular section of shoals, wave climate, everything else, just like there was a jetty there, and there's no sand bypassing in that plant, which means that Oak Island is going to continue to experience long-term erosion that we cannot make up without sand from some other source. Does that in any way resemble?
You're exactly correct. There is basically or essentially and absolutely no natural sand bypassing across that 50-foot deep hole. And that was one of the main reasons the way the Corps formulated the sand management plan initially. It said, well, we get 2 cubic yards coming off Ball Head dumping in the channel, 1 cubic yard coming off Oak Island dumping in the channel. Let's put it back where it came from. And I think that same philosophical approach was applied to this redo.
Well, and
it's just a matter of where you get the sediment.
And we're still not sure exactly how that redo is going to settle out.
But one thing we wanted to look at in this is to see what indeed this sand sharing has done. And is the proposal that the Corps is recommending going to really address the needs of not only Oak Island, but Caswell Beach?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And we already know that. And we have been paying people to tell us that. So
there's some way to modify that, enhance that, and there may be. I mean, you might be able to actually cost share with the Corps.
But again, it's and the for the Corps, it comes down to money, and they're going to dredge what they need to dredge to keep the channel open for navigation, and it has nothing to do with what is happening to the sand on the beaches. But at the end of the day, it's not something. In terms of trying to have the amount of sand at the time in the place where it needs to be to qualify for the static line exception, you'd almost end up paying to do the Fed's navigation for them, and that's not acceptable to me.
Well, I think you can demonstrate to a reasonable level that the navigation project, sand sharing, and beach disposal would meet that criteria. That's basically what Town of Atlantic Beach was able to do. And again, the static line exception that you're granted is only good for 5 years, and you have to go back each 5 years and demonstrate to the CRC through your studies that you've met their requirements. So
I understand that, but think about this with me for a minute. The amount of sand that's been put out on the Town of Oak Island section of the beach would not be as much as what would come out of that 2-year cycle. But yeah, there are going to be some serious issues going down the road in trying to capture what happens in the end result of that sand management plan. As long as there's nothing given to the fact that sand bypassing across the entrance channel has been shut down.
One of maybe the negative aspects of that would be that it may require the Town of Oak Island to pay a little bit of money to the Corps to.
Well, in other words, the least cost. You talk about not having to pay for it. Yeah, least cost disposal is in that 2-year cycle is not going to be to far enough down to do the Town of Oak Island any good.
Say again.
The least cost disposal for that every 2-year cycle split is not going to be enough to ever put any sand within the Town of Oak Island town limits.
Really?
No.
Maybe you look into that and then bring that information back to us later. Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
That don't seem right.
No, it don't, but it's
like I said.
Thank you very much for a very good presentation. Appreciate you coming, all three of you, to come in and giving this very informative presentation tonight. We've been in session for an hour and a half. We will take a 10-minute break.
I've not been asked a question.
We just went on mic when you just said that. We will call the meeting back to order, please. Okay. Next on the agenda is the adjustment and approval of the agenda first, since I did move new business item number 1, I believe, the resolution, Memorial Counselor Doja case. Obviously, that one is removed.
You didn't actually vote on it yet, so.
Pardon?
You didn't actually vote on the resolution yet.
The adoption, yeah. Oh, okay. All right, so leave it on there.
Thank you.
I forgot I'd already discussed that with her. Remember what I said earlier about you keeping us straight? Okay. Madam Clerk, I believe there was one set of the minutes for the combined council and capital improvement committee. Remove those from the consent agenda, please. That is item 1B.
Yeah, if you'll just remove those from the agenda entirely. I heard from the co-chair this morning from the, or earlier today, from that committee, and she had some questions about them, and I didn't have time today to listen to the audio.
So she will add those in our next meeting. And I would like to suggest agenda item number, old business number 3, the consideration of the draft agreement for the Beach Lovers logo. We just got the proposed draft agreement from the attorney late this afternoon, and it's 9 pages. So would council prefer to defer this item to the October meeting so that you can have opportunity to read through that? Okay. That is deferred. Okay, anybody else have any other changes, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Under old business, I'd like to add item number 5, consideration to pay off the fire truck and ambulances.
Would that be an old business item, or would it be a, okay,
yeah.
okay. Okay. Anyone else, please?
Madam Mayor, you made it an adjustment to the consent agenda. I need to make an adjustment, but does that come next, or?
I think we need to go ahead and do it.
No, you would remove items from the consent agenda at this point, if you would like to remove items.
Yeah, let's
or
put in the next thing.
or
I would like to remove number 2, approval of ordinance amendment, illegal parking, from the consent agenda, please.
and that would go under the items removed from the consent agenda.
Move it.
And then where does it go to?
It
I'm
goes
thinking
items removed from the
Oh, I
consent
see,
agenda.
I see. Oh, okay. That's what was confusing me. I understand.
It's always confused me. Okay, anybody else?
May I make a
Please.
comment, Madam Mayor? Since we're deferring the service mark license agreement, I would just ask if anyone has any questions about it, they just send me an email and I'll address it. It is lengthy, but it's relatively, I hope, at least straightforward.
Okay.
You just send me an email and we can shore it up.
Or give him a call in Council Midland. Okay, any further adjustments, please? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion by Councilor Painter. Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Kaiser. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Next, we have public comments on agenda items. Same rules as with general comments. Please state your name and address if you come to the podium. And you have the 3-minute limit with an additional 2 if needed. First to sign up is Richard Bunce.
Richard Bunce, 125 Northeast 26th Street. I want to join with Town of Oak Island officials in offering my sincerest sympathy to Joe Jacquet's family members and friends for their loss, and the hope that his family and friends will be consoled by the memories of his life and achievements. I had several, but not nearly enough opportunities to spend time talking to Joe about a variety of subjects and found him to be very engaging on a whole host of topics, and will miss the opportunity to continue our conversations. He was smart, eloquent, witty, and above all, I suppose, a classic example of Yankee thriftiness. I most remember and appreciate Joe for his efforts in 2002 while on the town council to change the course of the town wastewater project that from its earliest days was clearly headed in the wrong direction. Joe did his usual thorough job of researching various issues with the startup of the project, and in particular warned his fellow council members and the town staff on the many issues with Black & Veatch engineered projects in recent years. Sadly, that council and staff did not listen to Joe. They wanted a wastewater system in the worst possible way, and that is what we all got, as his warnings of the troubles to come turned out to be true. We can honor Joe going forward by performing due diligence in all future endeavors we undertake as a town, and not be blinded by the desires of some to make the town of Oak Island far more than it is or ever should become. The massive debt from this flawed project continues on for another 20 years, and I hope that the lessons we all should have learned from Joe will last at least that long. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That's all that's signed up on agenda items. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak, please? Okay, if not, next is our call to order our regular meeting. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended, please.
Madam Mayor, motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I have a motion by Councilor Painter. Do I have a second, please? Second by Councilor Medlin. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Next is items removed from the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
This item, the ordinance amendment on illegal parking, I would like to make a motion to remove item 1 as it's stated and replace it with the following statement. I'll just read the preface to the statement. It shall be unlawful to stop, stand, or park a vehicle, and this is where the change begins, whether attended or unattended, upon any portion of the roadway so as to obstruct vehicle, pedestrian, and or bicycle traffic.
Do we have a motion by Councilor Painter? Do we have a second to changing subparagraph 1?
I'll second.
Have a second by Councilor Medlin. Any discussion about the suggested changes, please?
Question
Please.
to our attorney. Either attended or unattended. What if it is attended and the car is immovable for some reason?
Like an emergency?
Yes.
That would be a technical violation of the ordinance, but I would think that from an enforcement perspective, they would understand that they're not deliberately doing it and assist them getting it off the roadway.
Okay.
Well, now, number 7, under this subparagraph, it says on a street median, unless the vehicle is disabled, and then only temporarily for a period not to exceed 24 hours. So perhaps we could add after where it says on a street median, unless the vehicle is disabled, and then only temporarily for a period not to exceed 24 hours. Add that to what you just read.
Question?
No, excuse me, I'm sorry. Forget I just said that. If your car is disabled and you have to pull it to block an alleyway or vehicular traffic, you need to call the police. Yes, I'm sorry. Forget I just said that. Yes, ma'am.
Why was the 12 inches included in the proposed language to begin with?
I believe Van got that from Raleigh's code of ordinances, didn't you?
I'm not sure. Could you repeat that? I couldn't quite hear what you said.
Some of the original language.
The original language indicates some distance of 12 inches from the curb or edge of the roadway. And I'm just wondering as to why that is there to begin with, or where that came from, or what's the reasoning behind that?
It originally came from an ordinance that was copied from Charlotte, the city of Charlotte, and the city of Wilmington. That was their ordinance.
Right.
And we just tried to apply it here, but it was confusing, and we rewrote it tonight to make it more understandable and easier to enforce.
Man, I
Honestly, to
think
me, like measuring 12 inches is pretty,
Well, you can approximate 12 inches. I think the real issue here was getting it far enough away from the street where the mirrors wouldn't interfere with the bike pass and the pedestrians walking by.
Any traffic, with the vehicle traffic, the bicycle traffic, pedestrian traffic, most of the complaints we get is, of course, the bicycle traffic, the bicycle lanes. But we have been enforcing this under a state statute, which costs the offender over $200 in penalties. $213.
He knows exactly.
But discussion from the district attorney, he has encouraged us to write our own ordinance so that we can charge a lesser fine and keep it in-house, so it doesn't come over to the courthouse.
right.
If I might say something, we found, unfortunately, the appeals court for no parking tickets or for parking tickets, which takes a good bit of time, as Dan will test. But one thing that we found when we started looking into it was that we didn't have anything in the town ordinance that would cover people parking in the road. Amazingly enough, we just didn't have it. Now, it was covered under the state statute, which if we were going to enforce it, that's the only mechanism that we had. But we're getting all kinds of people just parking out in the road. So that's how this came to pass, that we had to pass something so that we'd have some type of device or mechanism to be able to take care of it.
Well,
Please clarify that since it's a town ordinance, the fine is $50, and we're not going to be getting $213 off of each one of these.
Right. The city ordinance, the first offense is $50, second offense is $100. It comes directly to the town.
Okay.
If we do the state statute, all fees and penalties go to the state, and they disperse it not to the town.
And it's $213 as opposed to $50.
213, it could be higher than that. 213 is an average.
Okay.
yeah. How does this impact the, you were talking about bike lanes. We've already got an ordinance, part of our ordinance somewhere says it's illegal to obstruct the bike lanes and sidewalks, so this isn't necessary for that, as I understand it, correct?
This it covers the bicycle path also, but it covers vehicle traffic, pedestrian traffic, and the bicycle traffic. Mainly, we're looking at Beach Drive.
It's to keep people from parking partially on the street. And
Right.
So like I said, the
A lot of people.
bike paths we already have.
Apologize. A lot of people say, well, if we park on the edge of the road, we'll get stuck in the sand. So we want to leave part of our wheels on the road so we don't get stuck. And I think that's had a lot to do with some of this stuff.
Yeah, a question I'd like to ask, and I think it's number 7, Betty, that you just read. Let me find it.
On a street median unless the vehicle is disabled.
What page is that?
That is page 68.
Yeah. On a street median unless the vehicle is disabled and then only temporarily for a period of not to exceed 24 hours. What about an area like Barbie where we're using the median for parking?
If it's a cleared marked parking space, it doesn't apply. This would apply to Barbie and Middleton Boulevard.
Do we need to say that in the ordinance?
No. It's just like the stranded motorists. It's common sense. We would take that into consideration.
Yeah.
One last footnote, I believe Council Royal's looking for a parking plan from us. And we have our assistant chief working on that currently, and we've had several meetings, and we hope to have something for you on October's meeting. So I just thought.
Yeah, there was some, I know there's certainly been a lot of suggestions made from some of our residents, and I think you had mentioned talking with some firm that does some kind of assessment, and of course, the last time that we did any major revisions to parking ordinances, Van, I know you were here, but looking at something specifically for the beach, and I know there's been some changes in no parking zones and that type of thing, and
one of the things that
where we are on that.
One of the things that we found is there's a lot of places that are not I won't say they're incorrectly marked, but they're not clearly marked where people understand where they can park and where they can't park. And I think down at the point, this past week, we ran into that situation where we have a no parking from here to corner sign. Well, which corner? And it does raise that question. So we've been dealing all week with those folks down there, on that. The chief went down and looked at it, and I think we're going to change that in the next couple of days on that parking issue there. So it's an evolving process with some of these things.
Does anything in this, though, get caught up in or address some of those outlying issues?
Now, this ordinance here covers anything in the parking ordinance that we don't already have. And it's going to actually apply to some of the proposed shopping centers and so forth with the handicap ramps and the curb cuts. So this should cover any parking enforcement issue we have in the future as far as enforcement. Now, I'm not talking about areas and so forth, but enforcement.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous.
Thank you, Van.
Thank you, Van. Next is committee appointments. We have none in our packets. Madam Clerk, would you explain about the Beach Preservation Society appointments, please?
I will. When we delay a meeting until later in the month, that affects our ability to advertise. Our rules of procedure state that we're to advertise for 2 consecutive weeks in the newspaper, and we just didn't make that this time. There were some applications for Beach Preservation Society, and I've sent an email to one of the co-chairs and explained that because of the advertising situation, it seemed appropriate to me that they could just continue to serve until we have the opportunity to appoint somebody at the next council meeting. So we want to advertise to the public and so that everybody has a chance to apply if they want to.
Thank you. Next is committee reports. Michael, I believe you have a report.
My name is Michael Hicks. I'm co-chair of the Tree City USA Working Group. The Tree City USA Working Group is a small but dedicated working group trying to maintain the character of Oak Island by protecting its trees. We believe that our trees not only help maintain property values and enhance the quality of life, but also protect us. One of our missions is to educate the public on the importance of trees, which we have done at the Arboretum, where we have planted a variety of salt-tolerant trees for landscaping. The Arboretum and its gazebo greet visitors as they travel down Middleton from the new bridge. There is one significant flaw with the Arboretum, though: lack of parking. We would like to propose that council consider letting us expand the Arboretum to include the lot on the southwest side of Oak Island Drive in Middleton. The town already owns this lot. We'd like to create a few parking spaces and 1 or more trails with tree identifications. We also think that this site might be an ideal place for a welcome to Oak Island kiosk at some point in time. Additionally, we would like to expand the Arboretum to the forested half lot south of the existing Arboretum in order to include a handicapped parking space. The town also owns this lot. We would hope to be able to provide you with a detailed plan in the coming months if council agrees with the direction we are going. Our concept would preserve green space at the intersection while providing a welcoming site to visitors, particularly in light of the fact that DOT is scheduled to landscape this intersection this fall, as well as the northern approach to the bridge. So when you couple this with the work they're doing, I think it really would make a welcoming site for visitors. We would hope you would consider it favorably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, please. When the Arboretum was and you may recall this, when the Arboretum was officially dedicated, open, we had the ceremonies that we had there, we talked about discussions that had been had of potentially expanding to the adjoining property that the town did already own. And I'd like to ask for consensus of council for this group to move forward with working through some of those preliminary plans, understanding that anything that's done in the future would come back to council for approval.
Are you talking about his suggestion of the southwest corner as well as the lot behind?
I'd like to see all of what they might consider proposing.
Well, they asked me to meet with them out there at the Arboretum, and I asked them to draw up sort of a base design, just a broad stroke design of what they would like for council to do, and then bring that up. So I'm glad that
I'm asking for council consensus to support what Michael's request is.
we have council consensus to support the request.
Well, I hate, I'm not speaking in objection to what Michael's presented. I have proposed in past and would still like to see it happen that we have an inventory of town-owned properties and that we look at all those properties and try to determine what's the best use for them from an economic standpoint for the island before we move forward on something like this.
And Mike, when you bring back something later for council to consider later, I mean, the committee can do that. I have forgotten the reason that we were not looking at also the northeast corner. And along with the lot behind the current arboretum that he was talking about setting up for handicap parking. And then we've got to get with the DOT about being able to pull in there, and also after we do this, ask for more donations. That arboretum, I don't know if everyone knows that, but everything in that arboretum was paid for through donations from the public for the paving bricks and the benches, so it didn't cost the town anything at all. So, yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Foster, work with Michael, maybe include that in your list of town-owned properties. Okay, Roseanne, do you have a report from BPS tonight, please?
Roseanne Fortner, co-chair of the Beach Preservation Society's Advisory Board. We've made it to the end of a very busy summer, and along with our collective sigh of relief, we want to thank all of those who cooperated with the town ordinances for protection of the dunes and prevention of hazards to beachgoers and sea turtles. And we thank those who helped us remind others. There's always room to do more, of course, and that's in the hands of council now. We'd like to invite everyone on Oak Island, visitors, residents, and so forth, to continue with this dedication to environmental quality by assisting the Parks and Recreation Department and the Beach Preservation Society with the beach cleanup on the morning of October 12th. More information will be coming on that, but please mark your calendars now for that morning, October 12th. We also anticipate vacancies on the advisory board for the Beach Preservation Society and invite you to talk with me or co-chair Larry Parker about that possibility. We need your talents and commitment. The beach that drew us here and holds our hearts needs us all. Thanks for doing your part in protecting it.
Thank you, Roseanne. And next is the administrative reports. Mr. Foster, please.
Thank you very much. Been chomping at the bit for this opportunity.
Oh, I bet you have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got somewhat of a lengthy report. I have a number of items I need to kind of go over, not only for the board, but for the public's benefit. First, what I'd like to say is an update on our draft report as far as county acquisition of the wastewater system. I did speak with Ms. Hardy yesterday about an update on the potential of acquiring the wastewater system. She said that they hoped, the staff at the county hoped that they'd have a final draft report completed by the end of this week, with the report being delivered to the members of the county commission by no later than Wednesday of next week. They just want to have a chance to look it over and see what staff came up with on that. And she said that we would receive a report shortly, very shortly thereafter, on what the staff is going to recommend on that particular subject. Secondly, the completion of the wastewater treatment system. That's something we've been talking about for some time. I'm pleased to announce that this is its 25th place west. The final component of the wastewater collection system will begin the first week in October by the Russell Hickman Construction Company. The contract is for $44,000. I might point out we were planning on $80,000, so we came in significantly under that. Should take about 6 weeks to complete, and this is the final component of the collection system and Black & Veatch's contract. So that era will be over, hopefully, at the completion. Construction of the final component of the reuse system. Public Works Director met with the owners of the golf course over the weekend to show where the reuse facilities will be constructed. But after the owners check off on the location, bids will be solicited with a projected construction start date of the first week in December of this year. The estimated cost for completion of this pending bid submission will be approximately $800,000 as we felt like it would be, but we're hoping the bids will come in below that. We'll see how they come out and keep you posted on it. On another topic that we've been working on for some time is the new financial software reporting software that we have. Staff will be ready to make a final recommendation to the board at their October meeting for this new package. We do have it narrowed down to 2, and we'll be announcing the staff recommendation closer to the October meeting. Ms. Swerd has visited 3 municipalities that have used both finalist companies in Delaware, South Carolina, and North Carolina, and we're currently checking the finalist companies' computer hardware requirements just to make sure that they're compatible, that we don't need to expand our own. We feel like they are, but we're just wanting to make sure before we make a final selection on that. We feel like that installation and conversion can start during the month of November on that project. I'd like to announce on the part of Parks and Recreation, they plan on having their annual Spooktacular event this year, and it'll be held on October the 25th at the Rec Center from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and we hope we have a lot of spooks to turn out for that event. I think it was well attended last year, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it'll be another success for this year as well. Beach parking plan, as I mentioned, we're working on that, and we should have that report ready, complete by October, regular meeting. Mr. Edwards sent me something that I felt like was kind of sort of good news. Compared to last year, we tallied up the number of single-family home permits that were issued in 2012 was compared to 2011 and 12, previous year, and it was up 44.72%, which is fairly significant. And even better than that, the second quarter of this year, we're up over the same quarter from last year at 63.16%. So construction is moving along, and Mr. Edwards is doing a good job, and his staff in making sure all these inspections were carried out. The total inspections from January to December 2013 are 2,377 inspections during that period of time. As far as solid waste, the town's contract runs out in December. I currently have Mr. Napinski and Mr. Michaud and myself working on some new specifications for that contract. There's some few obstacles that we're running into as far as being able to select probably a new company, but we're working on that and seeing how we can overcome that. So it'll be a good, fair, equitable, and competitive bid process for our solid waste needs for the coming 3 years. Bridge. Let me talk about that for a minute. In case anybody here doesn't know, they're working on the bridge. And we got notification of that just within the last couple of days. We're on their notification list, but we weren't exactly, we feel like, properly notified on this. But the bridge will be closed from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and this will be during the week, and it'll happen through September the 20th.
One lane, not the bridge.
Pardon?
One lane.
One lane. I'm sorry, I won't say closed. One lane. However, when I was in it the other day, it was completely closed. I don't know which is correct, but I sat there for some time. But they're right. It is one lane of traffic. So just consider that in your daily traveling schedule. I might recommend that any time that you use the new bridge, that might be a little bit more of a constant that you can get through in using it. So that's just something that I wanted to bring to your attention. We do have a free dump week coming up this week for the county's putting on at the landfill, and that'll be through September the 16th to the 21st. And if you got a bunch of old stuff that you need to get rid of, you won't have to pay anything, any residential, I should say, not commercial, that you can take it to the landfill in Bolivia. I just want to, thanks to Councilor Kaiser, I appreciate him bringing this up about the delivery agency thing that came up with the fire department. I would like to really thank publicly both Chris Anselmo, Chief Anselmo, and Assistant Chief Steve Dixon. They came up with this, and it's been a real plus for the town. And I just want to publicly thank both of them for all the work that they've done on that particular project.
Steve Conway?
I mean Conway. I'm sorry, not Dixon. I was thinking about somewhere else, somebody else. I'm sorry, Steve Conway. But in any event, that's going to save us quite a bit of money, and we feel like it was a real plus. And I just want to thank both of those fellows for getting the department where it is, and I think Councilor Kaiser's worked with them, and I think they've done a wonderful job, and I just want to publicly thank them for their efforts in that direction. Let's see. We've also got flu shots that will be given by the Brunswick County Health Department tomorrow, and that'll be from times from 9 a.m. to 12 noon, and that's at Station 1 here on Oak Island Drive. And on the day of the clinic, you'll need to present a picture ID, your insurance card, so that the provider can fill the vaccination with your insurance. For those not filing with insurance, the cost is $38 for that service. And town employees will be participating in that. One last thing that I have, I believe it's the last thing that I have, is that we are going to have a candidates forum, and that's going to be on October the 17th at 6 p.m. And we would like to invite everyone to come. That will be televised by Channel 8, and it will be here in the council chambers. So we'd like everybody to know about it and everybody to attend, and we feel like that'll be a real informative session for everyone. And I believe, let me see, make sure I got everything. Mayor, I think that's all.
May I ask a couple of things right quick?
Sure.
We got the notice on Kyle's emails that he sends out about the free dump week at the county. As with most of them, it's in PDF format. Mm-hmm. Could we ask him to get with the town clerk and publish that as a PDF document on our website, so it'll make a URL link, kind of like our agenda items? I do a lot of my updates on Facebook, and you can't post, I can't, I haven't figured out how to post a PDF document on Facebook. But if it's one that's on our website, if it's published to our website, you can post a link.
We may be able to do that in the future, but the announcements sections that we have, they're kind of small announcements that we type in ourselves. So the whole PDF on there, it'll be its own page. I don't know how many would find it.
Yeah. Oh, you haven't started the new website yet. That's right.
Oh, that was my last thing. I got one more thing.
Go ahead.
I want to thank Ms. Stites. Our website will go live tomorrow.
Oh.
And she did a beautiful job on it, and I'd like everybody to visit that. I mean, it is an absolutely gorgeous site.
Yep.
And she's able to post things immediately, and I just want to thank her just so much for being able to do that. If you got a few minutes, I just want to allow them to show some of the work that she's done on this, if you'll allow that, Madam Mayor.
And just so everybody knows, when it does go live, it may take as much as 24 hours for you to see it on your browser at home. So it won't be an immediate thing necessarily. Yeah, so give it a little time to show. But some of the good features, we will be able to put the meetings on there, and they're recurring, so we don't have to put meetings on there every month. They just automatically recur. We can, as Mr. Foster said, upload documents immediately. We'll have some work when it goes up to go back and build pages for the agendas and minutes of the past, but we're going to start with the current ones and go backwards. And the tax search function, we hope, will be active next week. But other than that, we're just going to do some tweaking, and it is much more user-friendly.
Yes, it is.
And we hope everybody loves it.
Gorgeous. That looks great.
Thank you.
Yeah, good job, Lisa. Good job. How long have you been working on that? 6 months?
Since January.
Yeah?
Yes.
8 months.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
question back to garbage. Hate to do this, but what about the last 3 or 4 weeks during which the county was doing their free dump week? We did something different also, and I'm wondering what the status of that is for us now, or if we're changing yet again how we do things. I guess it goes back 3, 4, spring of last year, year before last, fall of year before last, where during the week when we stopped doing the zone pickups for people to be able to put out brown and white goods, then we said, well, okay, you can put it out during this same week, spring and fall, that the county is doing their cleanup. Are we doing that again this year or this fall, or are we eliminating that because of some other procedure that will?
Could you hold off on that question just for a little bit? I think John's going to make a presentation that's going to probably cover some, if you don't mind. He could probably answer that in his presentation fairly easily. Okay, thank you.
Flu shots. Perhaps next time we can get a notice a little bit further in advance.
I agree.
Of the flu shots, because it is open to the public.
Probably should have got it out quicker than.
Yeah.
I should have. Yeah.
I know Kyle sends out his Oak-Island report, but there are a lot of the people that need them don't have the internet.
Right.
So yeah.
Good suggestion.
Yeah. If you don't mind, mention that the candidate forum was sponsored by the North Carolina League of Women Voters.
That's right.
Yes, and John Evans of WECT particularly requested that he be our moderator this year. So I'm very proud of Oak-Island for that.
We're going to have a local celebrity handling it this year.
Oh, local celebrity. I know, but.
Okay.
And we will be putting out in the Oak-Island Report and on the website the methods by which the general public can forward their questions to the candidates for the forum.
Our PIOs plan on doing that.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for the manager? I had them all tonight? Okay. Okay, Mr. Eads, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On August 23rd, 2013, the governor signed Senate Bill 151 into law. I know y'all received the emails, but just for the public's benefit, that statute clarifies the municipal authority to enact and enforce ordinances on the dry sand beaches. That came into question due to a case that came down last year. The town manager for Emerald Isle and I've been working on this with Representative McElrath since last winter, and I'm very pleased to see that it's been passed and signed by the governor.
Good. Okay. Anybody have any questions, please? Okay. Next we'll go into.
I'm sorry. Oh. Yeah, I did. And it's not really, probably more questions for Steve than for Brian, although I'm sure he will be reviewing that as well. There's been some draft work done on some revisions to what we do and don't do out on the beach, and there was a process that you had laid out for doing that. Could you give us a status report on that, Steve?
Yeah, I'd briefly like to just comment on that. Mr. Crook, he did the lion's share of the work on putting this new one together. There's some changes that we're looking at, but and we've made a presentation to the Beach Preservation Society the other day on what's proposed, and this is just a rough draft. But what we're planning on doing is there's some restrictions that we're putting in this time on both the on several items in the ordinance. I'll let Josh address them in a minute as far as the changes. But we wanted everybody in the spectrum that may have our stakeholders would have an opportunity to comment on this before we brought it back to the board, so we can go ahead and make whatever modifications that would be too onerous for anybody that felt like it was. So we're planning on having a stakeholders meeting, which would include the Beach Preservation Society, staff, and some of the rental agencies and equipment agencies to solicit their comments on this proposed, and I appreciate you bringing that up, this proposed ordinance. Josh, you might want to just mention a couple of the things that are changing that would be a little bit different than what we're doing now.
You have to bear with me. I don't have it with me, but I'll do from memory. One of the significant changes that we're proposing is no longer will canopies be allowed whatsoever. We'll allow beach umbrellas and beach umbrellas only. They tend to be smaller, easier to haul on and off the beach, less encumbersome. Fire and EMS and police can get around them without a problem. You don't have to dig up strings and sandbags and all that stuff to get around them. Another major aspect of it would be to limit any hole, doesn't matter whether it's attended or not attended, to 12 inches deep, period. And no items whatsoever would be allowed on the beach overnight. Those are some of the significant changes. Again, Mr. Foster, and I believe it was Thursday of last week, he got a copy of it to the Beach Preservation Society. John Michaud and I had been working on it for quite some time. We've worked together on it, and I'm just waiting on some of the other stakeholders to bring back some ideas.
There's one other item, too, that was a change, and that is the time limit of leaving stuff on the beach after certain hours. And it was decided because it's so nebulous, it's real nebulous to say you're going to pick it up from sunset to sunrise, or you can't leave it out there because during the summer the sun stays up until after 9 o'clock at night, which would make it very difficult to go out and pick things up when we start enforcing this stuff. So we have, I think you put in, what was it, 7?
I had originally put it in at 7, but there was some discussion about maybe 8 o'clock, and I guess the discussion about that was people have dinner and want to go sit on the beach. You know, it's the type like that. But I have not got feedback other than I set it at 7, and there was some other discussion around 8 o'clock. I have actually had to enforce these ordinances on the beach, and I would prefer to see 7 because you would still be there for quite a long time getting stuff.
One last little thing that we're going to have to work with Brian on this one, and that's our jurisdictional limits on the beach as to whether we can extend our jurisdiction up into the sand dune or not. That's something that I know with the Slavin case that might have had an impact on it. But anyway, we're working on that as far as jurisdictional limits
Clear.
as well.
So has all of this been forwarded to, what other stakeholders have received a copy of the draft?
Well, right now, we just read it, or just went over it with the Beach Preservation Society. We haven't sent these out yet as a formal document, but we just wanted to let the Beach Preservation Society know that we were working on this. I don't know, Josh, what kind of time frame are we looking at for?
We haven't. We have been in. I have personally spoke with Karen Rudd with Margaret Rudd and Associates. I've spoke with John Hamilton, and I've spoke with Dick Davis at all 3 of the major rental agencies. We haven't got a time nailed down. They couldn't get together with us during the last holiday weekend. So as soon as Beach Preservation brings me some of their information, we're going to set up a meeting with Beach Preservation staff and the major rentals, and then.
Well, and my question was, who else has received a copy of the draft?
At this point, I think Mr. Foster provided it to Beach Preservation.
Well, I didn't provide them a copy. I just read it to them. What were some of the changes that we're looking at?
One one piece of it I will make a comment on, just for your information, that showed up in the draft previously that was not adopted, and that was using the hole at a depth of 12 inches. That ended up, as I recall and understood at the time and continue to, ended up in a lot of ordinances for beach towns simply because of they didn't want anything to have any potential for not being able to get a beach bulldozing permit, because there's a 12-inch depth associated with that, and that's the wet sand beach. So it's other than that, it really serves no useful purpose as to what I think is trying to be accomplished here. But I'll just throw that out as a bit of historical background. That's a good point.
I think the problem, the way it's written right now, is they have to actually leave the hole, and standing there waiting for somebody to leave a hole could take some period of time to do that.
Well,
and I think that was why we were talking about it'd be better just to go ahead and address the holes that's being dug rather than after the fact. But
well, in any event,
other significant, I mean, the police are going to be the enforcement tool on this. We're setting fine limits: first offense 50, second offense 100, third offense. We're giving them an immediate tool to do something as well. I believe Mr. Michaud's people would be the ones that would be removing the actual items off the beach. It's more than just a few little items, but I'm not aware. Mr. Edwards could probably bring me up to speed on the bulldozing permit stuff. What we try to do is model ordinance with other ordinances within the county.
What I said was the reason why other towns have it in their ordinances is so that they wouldn't be in violation if they needed a beach bulldozing permit. That's fact.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're still in the, okay, old business portion. Council Royal, consideration of fire department issues, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is in two parts, and the first part, Council took some action on at our last regular meeting and requested a timeline. That information is not in our packet, but I understand that Chief Anselmo is prepared to bring us an update on that verbally.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yes, Chief's been working on this, and I think that he's going to make a verbal presentation on that.
Excuse me. Chris Anselmo, Oglala Fire and Rescue Chief. I did have a meeting with Brian Watts, Director of Emergency Services, in reference to a timeline for establishing paramedic service in the town of Oak Island. And what we discussed basically was the meetings that we have to go through and the process that we're going to have to go through would probably, he feels very comfortable that we would be able to do this by July 1st of 2014, the new fiscal year. With that said, I've already started to look into training because, as discussed before, there's several people that we would need to send to training, and based on college schedules, they don't run these classes every month. They run usually one class per year. I have contacted Brunswick County, I've contacted Lenore, and several others, and there is one class starting in October. I don't think that will be economically feasible for us to do, judging by the timeline of that class. And the fact that the people in the class will have to go to Lenore for quite a bit of time, it's just not financially feasible for us to do that. Rich Burns, who is the training officer for the county and also the EMS coordinator for the college as far as EMS training, we spoke again today before I came to this meeting, and he is working on something that he thinks he can probably put together for us to start this paramedic class for the several people that need to go. We have 11 on staff right now, myself and Chief Conway included, which of course we're Monday to Friday. So that leaves the other 9 as shift paramedics. we would have to have 2 in one station and 1 in the other station until we can get 3 more certified. So by the county, July 1 is what we're looking at, and we can start that process right now with the town council's approval, and move forward with it with the expectation of July 1st from the county's perspective. But I need a little more time to look at the instruction of these other 3, because I'm not sure it's a great idea to leave 2 and 1 at one station. One calls in sick or one is on vacation, and we got to kind of flop people around a little bit to make sure that both stations are covered. So if we have to move it back a month or, you know, to August or September of 2014, Brian Watts doesn't have any issue with that whatsoever. As far as he's concerned, we can move forward and have a date set for July 1st as our target. And if I feel that we need to move it back 30 or 60 days, he has no issue with that.
Chris, question. With the new capability you're going to have now to do your training in-house, will that include paramedic training?
No, sir. What we did was we established a delivery agency status through the Office of the State Fire Marshal. So what that is all fire training, rescue training, fire officer training, driver operator, all of that. The medical side, we would have to establish that through the Office of Emergency Medical Services. However, that's not off of our radar. We just needed to take care of one thing first and move on to the next.
Okay.
Chris, I think it may be confusing to people who don't understand as much about the setup and organization of things. When you're talking about delays with the 2 to the 1, and could you kind of put that in a little more layman's language?
Well, what we have is we have 6 shift workers on staff per day working 24-hour shifts. So on each shift right now, we have 3 paramedics, 2 intermediates, and 1 basic. And they're broken up 3 into each station. So that would leave 2 out of the 6 people, out of those 3 paramedics, out of those 6, we would have to have 2 at either station 1 or station 3, and then 1 at the other. When we agree to provide paramedic level service, that paramedic level service has to be provided by state and county standards 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So therefore, we would always have to have a paramedic on shift. Now, we didn't get into the finer details, Brian and I. This was basically to establish the timeline. There's going to be many more meetings that we have to go through to get to that point. But having one person go out for either for training or for Con Ed or vacation or call in sick, we would have to move people around and just kind of thin it out a little bit. We do have 5 paramedics on staff part-time. But again, their availability is based on their full-time jobs, which they all work full-time for other fire departments or other agencies. I would feel more comfortable having 2 people at each, 2 paramedics at each station and having that established before we go forward. I'm not saying it has to be that way, but that would make me more comfortable.
Well, and I understand that. I'm wondering what the requirements is going to be for the county to sign off on. You know, how they're going to look at. The county would,
as long as we can guarantee 1 paramedic on each of those engines, 24 hours a day.
Okay.
That's their criteria.
That's their criteria.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
But again, if we have to have that, once we do this, we have to do it right. So I feel more comfortable having that cushion, so to speak. Because I've had days where 2 people call in sick. It's just the way it happens, and another person's on vacation, and now all of a sudden you're 2 or 3 short. So I want to make sure that if we do this, we do it right. And
did I understand you correctly, Chris, that you have 3 intermediates now?
I have 6 intermediates, 2 on each shift. Correct.
Okay. Are all 6 of those interested in getting their full certification?
Every one of them. And
how long will that take?
To get their paramedic certification would take, well, the Lenore College was running a 6-month program.
Okay.
Brunswick County is running like a year program. It depends. The only reason Lenore is 6 months is because most of it is online. But I looked into that a little further because I thought online sounds good. They can pretty much do that work while they're on shift, but they would still have to go and do practicals, and then you're talking about 200 hours of hospital time and 200 hours of ride time on an ambulance. And I double-checked with Brunswick County EMS today, and they do not have a contract with Lenore to provide that ride service. So 3 people, 200 hours, sending them to Lenore, that's kind of takes away from what you would be saving by them doing it online. So we got to look at every aspect of it. Now, of course, there's Cape Fear College. I haven't been able to get in touch with anybody there, but Rich Burns, he's aware of mine and Brian's conversation and where we're looking to head. So he's going to see if he can put together a paramedic program based on us and get some other people in the county in on it, because there's always people throughout the county that are waiting, but they have to have a specific number of people to run the class. If they can run it in-house, I might be able to send all 6 of them. I mean, if it's financially doable. But I'll just have to wait to hear back from him, and he wasn't able to get back to me today on that.
Chris, one other question that brings to mind, and the, I guess, 9 people that it is that have the certifications, there was some indication previously that just because they had the certifications didn't mean they could hop on the truck and perform the service now.
We have myself and Captain Jack Baker that currently work for the county part-time. So we're already clear to ride. We could ride tomorrow if we establish that service. Captain Bobby Carmen, Rob Taylor, and I can't remember who Captain Joe Snap. They all work for Baldhead, so they should be good to go as well. So that only leaves a couple of people that would have to do ride time. That's not really a big expense. We're talking about maybe having to ride 5 to 6 12-hour shifts to get their skills checked off by a field training officer. The big part of it is actually sending those intermediates to a full-fledged paramedic class. The other guys, it'd just be a couple of weeks of ride time and they'd be functionable to go. They're already certified statewide. They just have to be cleared to function in this county.
I understand that. I do. That seemed at one point to be more of the concern rather than getting certifications for people who didn't have them.
I'm sorry.
It seemed to me at one time that was more of the concern than getting certifications for people that don't have them.
No, that's not a concern. We shouldn't have any issue with them doing their ride time and getting. Some of them have functioned as paramedics before, but they haven't functioned in a year or 2. They've kept up, as long as they've kept up their Con Ed, which they have, because they would not be able to recertify with the state if they didn't prove continuing education. So everybody is current. Their state certifications are good. So Brunswick County just wants to see a little bit of ride time out of them and get them checked off on some of their skills. And then they'll do what they call an oral board, which is at the county level. And with the medical director, and they'll be signed off and clear to function. It's not a big issue at all.
I understand that, but in other words, at least the impression that I had from previous discussions about this was that that's what needed to occur before we begin, and I just don't recall the training people to get the paramedic to begin with being an issue. And it sounds like it is now.
No, it's not an issue. I just have to identify the classes and get them into those classes.
That would be a requirement to get started.
That will not be a requirement from the county for us to start. We have enough people to do it now according to the county. Like I said, we have 9 people. All Brian is going to require is 1 paramedic on each engine. We have that right now. I'm just saying that I would feel more comfortable if we had, as a chief, to have that extra cushion of people, because we do have, everybody gets sick, everybody goes training, everybody goes on vacation. I just want to make sure that we do this right, because if we move forward with this, I would prefer to have 2 people at each station. That's only 3 people going through school. And if I can't get them done by July, I could certainly have them done by the latter part of the year. Brian is good with July 1st. He's not the one that's going to hold us back, and he's going to work with us with whichever way we want to do it. If we're ready to go July 1st, we can go July 1st. If we want an extra 30 to 60 days, he's fine with that too. And I don't want to commit to it either way. We will definitely get it done in 2014.
So what we hear you saying is you could do it July the 1st, but you would not be comfortable as a chief doing it that way.
If we don't have those people trained. If I can get them in a class that will clear them up by, because like I said, Lenore had a 6-month class. Maybe somebody else does too.
There's a good possibility that you could.
Yeah.
But if you can't have it done, then you need to project out a further date. Why don't we just say let's take until 2014 to start the program? And that way we know we would be ready.
Would be July of 2014 is what we're looking at. That's the county's.
No, I mean until the end of 2014.
Make that your goal.
Okay.
That's just a thought. And I understand your dilemma.
January 1st of 15, and that would give me plenty of time to get everybody through it, and I'm fine with that. I just
would that not be your preference? I thought I heard you say that you want to be sure you want to do it right, and that sounded like the right way to me. That way you would know you would have the ample time to do what you need to do.
That's fine with me.
All we're looking from you is a timeline that's manageable, and if that would be more manageable for you, then I think that's the direction you should go.
For me, January 1st would be more manageable to me than rushing everybody through this class. So, that would be my recommendation, January. But again, I had to tell you what Brian could do, and he could do July. He can do July 1st as a target date. But me, I would recommend them be more comfortable with a January 1st, 2015.
Two questions to follow up, if I may. One, whether it's July or January, there were still some additional costs in terms of some costs that aren't budgeted for doing that training, correct or not?
I'm sorry, additional costs in?
Additional costs for either getting people checked off on their ride times to be able that are certified, or getting people certified. Correct?
Yes, there is additional cost to get them certified, and the additional cost for getting them checked off is basically overtime.
Right, but that would still be something that we would need to be prepared to provide in this year's budget.
Yeah, in this year's and next year's, because when I made
but it would start. There need to be an amendment in this year's budget at some point in order to do that.
At some point when they start their paramedic class, yes. But in the letter that I submitted, the last packet, it showed that it would spread that out over 2 fiscal years.
I understand, but there will be an upcoming budget amendment in order to do that, and that to me is where the commitment rubber meets the road. Secondly, and having said that, when would you need that budgetary commitment from council in order to proceed, even to get to a January 2015 start date?
When would I need the budget amendment for this year? Oh, probably within the next 60 to 90 days, as soon as I can establish when their training would start, either with Cape Fear or with Brunswick Community or another college, which, again, we're currently looking into that. I'm not a big fan of the hybrid classes because I think when it comes to paramedic, a classroom setting and a hands-on instruction is more educational, and you learn more, and it's easier to follow than leaving it up to you. And a lot of these colleges are now doing what they call hybrids.
Yeah.
So I'm not. I would prefer our guys to be sitting in a class with an instructor in the front of it. Right. And that is a longer time span for them to do it. But I still need to get some answers back from some colleges to see when they're going to be running these programs. But I would say an amendment would be needed in 60 to 90 days to start the training.
Now, my second question that comes to mind, even since you've been chief, we've had turnover in staff. And that staffing has had differences in terms of what their certifications might or might not be, or whether they're signed off to do whatever that certification might call for. So in looking in a longer-term future, yeah. How many, you're saying we need how many people to be on staff that are certified paramedic and able to do in order to make this program run, and what happens once we have additional staff turnover, which is just inevitable. I mean, it's the nature of the beast. How do we deal with that going forward?
Well, once we establish a paramedic program, then right now, if we lost a paramedic, I can replace him with an intermediate, because that's where we function. Once we roll this over into a paramedic level service, if I lose a paramedic, I got to have a paramedic, period. But with that said, we don't have a lot of paramedics that apply here. A lot of, because we advertise for firefighter paramedics, but then when they call and they go and look and, survey the town a little bit, see what the agency's all about, and find out that we run at intermediate level, they don't apply. Because if you're a paramedic, you want to function as a paramedic. So I think that part of that problem will fix itself. If we're actually functioning as paramedics, we'll get a lot more paramedic response to our ads. I also hope that we don't have as big of a turnover, as we have had in the past. And Steve and I have worked a lot to get, and we've made it a point to try to move this paramedic forward, just like we did with the delivery agency, to try to attract more firefighter paramedics.
So what we're really after is a timeline, basically. So we're saying January 1, 2015.
My recommendation for the paramedic service would be January 1st, 2015.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion that we instruct the fire chief to move in the direction of providing first responder paramedic service starting January of 2015.
We have a motion. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Councilor Kaiser. Any further discussions? All those in favor, please. All those opposed? It is unanimous. And you might as well stay up there. Councilor Royal, item 1B under old business.
Yeah, this was something we had deferred from last time, and I think there may be some question as to where we may be headed with this, or what needs to be done to, or not, to move forward with it. I know that the chief and I had some conversations, not terribly much at length, but in terms of looking at going through some kind of scoping process, and that might take some time. I know Danny and I had some conversation about that as well. There's certainly a lot of information in here, and I had asked for some additional information to be added, which was in your packet, starting on page 89 and going through page 92, that had some more detail of some of the types of consulting services for emergency services, fire, that's done by ESCI, which is one of the firms that was in the initial material that council received. Danny, I know you had talked about in terms of looking at something on some kind of an audit type of thing, which is some of the information we have in here. And I wanted to ask you, first of all, what further thoughts you've given to that. And
well, for those of you that don't know, if we go with a consultant, that's people that are firefighters, fire officers. Some of them retired, some of them are current. But before we get there, I would like to have an internal feasibility done in-house by our chief and assistant chief to see where we stand, and that they're more in tune to see where we're at with our capabilities than having an outside agency come in, because there'll be a lot of duplication of work. The two chiefs know where we're at, what we can do. So this is termed as a feasibility study. I think realistically, y'all could probably do that in time for the next budget preparation. Am I wrong there, or?
No, I think that Chief Conway and I can do it in in that time frame. I mean, if you were looking for some, I mean, I have no doubt that me and Chief Conway can provide an adequate plan by budget, after the first of the year, during the budget sessions. If it was something that was needed before then, I don't think we can provide it, and that's just because of all the other things we've got on our plate right now. But I definitely think we can provide it for you after the first of the year.
And this is going to be a broad snapshot of where we're at, what we can do, projections of trends in this area. I'm not really concerned what other states are doing.
Well, right, but
we're a beachfront community, and you know what we need. And I think we need to assess our own assets first. And I think these two, because they're in this area, in this department, they know better what we've got and where we need to go. So I think that would, and I'm not saying in many years or a few years we may need a full encompassing study, but that's where I'd like to go with it now. I think we will get more quality for it.
You'd like to make a motion to that effect?
Well, and I'd like to have another opportunity to comment, if I may, Madam Mayor, before we get to that.
I'm through talking if you want to talk.
Thank you, Dan.
Talk me off.
The whole point of having the scoping, and when we had talked earlier about doing some kind of auditing process, I still feel like there is a need to do an outside, objective, third-party professional audit of what we have. And there are sections of that certainly that would not apply to us, and there's quite an extensive list of the types of things that these folks do. And I would like to have some suggestions from the chief. Should that be the in looking through these materials, what could be useful to you in terms of having some professional consulting.
As far as the different subject matter that's on here, what would be useful? There's a lot of things that would be useful on here. In a 10-year study, the station, the growth of the area, the staffing, the training, the trucks, that we're going to be needing to address in the future. There's a lot of avenues that can be addressed. We'd have to pick out primarily what we need. But I still think in looking at these that Chief Conway and I could do a very good job at putting this together.
And understand that any kind of consulting, of course, would be working with that. It's not like you're excluded from that process. Would also work with the county, I'm sure, and there are a lot, depending on what pieces of it you might want to focus on at any one particular time, and would also work with the OPON department. I think there's seems to be some concern that a third-party objective look at what we have would say we need to consolidate. On the other hand, there's the same concern that a third-party objective consultant would say that we don't need to consolidate. And there are a lot of different ways to provide service, and we have a lot of resources that have accumulated over the years.
I don't mean to break
again,
your statement, but
again, I think it would serve the town well to seriously consider utilizing some of the consulting services that these firms provide.
We can discuss this all night and probably not get anywhere. Why don't we make a motion? Why don't you make a motion, Councilor Kaiser, and let's vote on it and get this thing on the table or off the table.
Well, my motion was going to be that we refer
well, then you make a motion, please.
Okay, you make a motion.
My motion was going to be that we refer this to our Emergency Services Board for some review and ask them to bring back something to us in November for their initial, it doesn't have to be something full-blown, but just kind of their general take on the kind of services that can be provided by from the information that's in our packet, and how we might how they think might be useful for the town to proceed on this. Just get a recommendation from them.
Was that your motion?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Okay, next on the agenda is discussion of beach protection. Councilor Kaiser.
Thank you, Mayor Wallace. I've written my comments so I won't ramble too long and we can go faster, so I'm going to read what I've got here.
Okay.
We have had 2 accidental drowning deaths this year on the island. Several other beaches have also had similar incidents this year. I was asked recently how many deaths due to accidental drowning we have each year. My reply was, I'm not concerned with how many we have, I'm only concerned with one, and that's the next one. It has always been said that drowning is preventable. Throughout my years in emergency services, the consensus nationwide on this issue has always been that accidental drowning is the single most preventable cause of death when compared to all other causes. We have a very capable water rescue organization on this island. In fact, Oak Island Water Rescue is the only such agency in the state that provides ocean and surf rescue as their primary function. The United States Coast Guard provides water rescue services, but not in the surf or not in close proximity to the shore. However, the response by both these agencies to a water-related incident is reactive. We should be more interested in what we as town leaders can do proactively to prevent the next drowning incident. By proactive, I am referring to what can be done to prevent the incident before an emergency response is needed. This would be much like the concept of public education in the fire service and community watch programs at police departments. I would like to task the Emergency Services Advisory Board to look at the feasibility of implementing the following 6 proactive measures. Number 1, methods of rip current condition posting, including who and how this would be maintained on a daily basis. Number 2, public education as to the dangers of rip currents and other hazardous conditions in the water. Number 3, protected beach areas. Number 4, rescue swimmers patrolling the beach sand. Number 5, public and private partnerships with vendors, rental agencies, and peers for funding options. Number 6, any other proactive measures they might find that might prove effective. One of the concerns I've heard expressed by leaders in other municipalities is the liability associated with any type of beach protection. But there are concerns about liability with any service the town provides. I've been asked, what if the person responsible for a certain area of the beach does not show up for work and someone drowns? Or what if they misinterpret the rip current conditions and post a warning flag? How effective any organization is in training and operations and quality review of any service provided is without a doubt the single most way to mitigate any such concern about potential liability issues. There is one other aspect of liability concerns I'd like to address. We advertise our beaches very heavily. We want to get as many people as possible to visit Oak Island. We provide easy, accessible parking to the beach. We place trash cans on the beach in order to encourage people to keep the strand free of debris. We have ordinances telling people to fill in holes, and they dig in what is and is not allowed on the beach strand. We do all this because the beach is our main attraction. It is our industry. To make an effort to get the public to come here and then to not do everything in our power to educate them about possible hazards and keep them safe, that there is the greatest liability of all. And worse than that, it is not right. Physical concerns and liability issues are both distant second to where our focus should be. How to effectively implement any program to save lives is an operational decision and is to be delegated by staff. But the decision that we need to develop and fund any program for staff to implement is a matter of public policy, and that is for this body to make. I'm not suggesting any particular program or course of action tonight. I'm merely saying that we need to investigate all aspects of safety in the ocean. But no matter what course we choose to take to address this serious issue, we must start the process now and have a plan of action in place by the 2014 season. So that's open discussion. I've said my piece. Let's see where we would like to go with it.
Would you like to restate the items that you would like for council to approve to forward to the emergency
Yes,
service?
I'll reread those 6. You want me to make that in form of a motion?
Make that form of a motion, then we can get it seconded and open for discussion.
Mayor Wallace, I would like this group to task the Emergency Services Advisory Board to look at the feasibility of implementing the following proactive measures. Number 1, methods of current condition posting, including who and how this would be maintained on a daily basis. Number 2, public education as to the dangers of rip currents and other hazardous conditions in the water. Number 3, protected beach areas. Number 4, rescue swimmers patrolling the beach strand. Number 5, public and private partnerships with vendors, rental agencies, and peers for funding options. Number 6, any other proactive measures they can find that might prove effective.
Thank you.
That's my motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Councilor Medlin. Discussion, please.
What we're doing here, what he's recommending is we refer this to the Emergency Service Advisory Committee to study it and bring us back recommendations. We're good with that, right?
I would like to participate with them at some level.
Well, I'll add that in my motion, that this done be in conjunction with advice and direction and whatever it is you do. That didn't sound right, did it? Whatever you deem appropriate to handle it.
Amend your motion to
I amend that motion to include the town
assistance
attorney
of the town attorney
in this process. Will you amend your second?
Yeah, I will.
That didn't sound right. I'm sorry, Brian.
Let's vote on the amendment of the motion first, please. All those in favor, please. Okay, unanimous. And now we will vote on the motion itself. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Did you raise your hand? Okay, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. All those opposed, please. 4-1 with Councilor Royal dissenting. One quick statement. The mayors of Brunswick County have been invited to Sunset Beach Town Hall on September 17th to see a presentation by the Wrightsville Beach Fire Chief on their lifeguard and riptide warming system. I will be gone. Okay.
Can you take somebody with you?
Pardon?
Can you take somebody with you?
Sure. You want to go?
I'd like to go too if it's.
Let me check with the inviter to the meeting. They invited the mayors. And let me make sure that they can handle in the room other town officials. I will ask that they include them. Next is the consideration of
Mayor
adopting.
Wallace, she's trying to get your attention.
Pardon, I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to say, as a comment on my vote.
I'm sorry, Council Royal. We are running late as it is, and we've had the time for discussion was during the after the motion before we voted, and we just got to cut out this thing of 10, 15 minutes after a motion. So I will call you out of order on that one. The motion has been approved. Next on the agenda is the consideration of adopting no smoking rules for certain town facilities. Councilor Medlin, please.
I'll try to make this quick. We have an ordinance proposal in our packet, and it plainly states that there would be no smoking in any buildings or facilities hereafter owned or leased, operated, or occupied by the town, to include, and it specifies the buildings. It also specifies the Teen Center, Middleton Park, soccer fields, and the other fields associated with it, and Bill Smith Park and all the fields, trails, and buildings therein, and the Ocean Education Center, Nature Center. And I would make a motion that this ordinance be approved as presented in our packet.
Have a motion. Do we have a second, please? Second. Second by Councilor Painter. Any further discussion, please?
I will just say one thing in my little piece. I agree with the no smoking in the buildings, but I'm going to find it very hard that we're going to be able to enforce this in any park whatsoever. I mean, that's just my feeling, my gut feeling, not unless we're going to have somebody staffed in parks.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm more concerned about the parks than I am the buildings because of the image it sets to the young people on the ball fields and the trash that it leaves on the ground.
I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I totally agree with you.
I think it's going to be an enforcement issue. We're just going to have to enforce it.
Madam Mayor? Most people's objection to smoking in public places, as Jim has pointed out, beach as well, parks is the litter issue. We already have an ordinance against litter. It's illegal, and we don't enforce that. I don't see why we need yet another ordinance on the books that's not going to be enforced.
Thank you. Any further discussion, please?
Madam Mayor, just my thought on it is that anything that we can do to encourage people to stop smoking and to not have people smoking in front of children. That's why I think in the parks it would be a good thing. Even though I do understand there will be an enforcement issue, but.
Well, I think if we post signs and specify the ordinance, I think the people will get the message after a while.
And what about the people who have parents and they smoke at home? And what I don't get the issue of the particularly since in places like Bill Smith Park, it's the parents of children who are there smoking. They already know the parents smoke. I just don't get it.
Any further discussion, please? All those in favor, please.
Madam Mayor, can I just ask one question, please? We did not have this reviewed by our town attorney, and I just had a question about the penalties. If he had a chance to review that.
I've read the body of the 20-4, and I was looking for the area you and I discussed on the phone, Lisa, and can you direct me to it?
Just below that 20.5 or 20-5, and it has that it's a misdemeanor, and then it also has that there's fines.
I'd like to look at Section A a little more in depth. I mean, 20 dash, the actual prohibition is fine. I think you need to elect whether you want to treat it criminally as a misdemeanor or civilly with fines.
Also, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, what you're saying is A, B, and C are options on the.
What I'm saying is I didn't prepare this ordinance, and I just wanted to make sure that the town attorney reviewed whether we could include penalties, both criminal and civil, for the same offense.
I feel more comfortable with the board. If it's inclined to pass 20-5 to remove Section A.
And then re-letter sections B and C as sections A and B?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Would you like to amend your motion,
I would.
please? And would you like to amend your second? I would. Chair will entertain all those in favor of removing subparagraph A and re-lettering A, B, and C as A and B. All those in favor, please. Okay. And if there's no further discussion on the original motion, all those in favor, please. All those opposed? Motion carries 3-2 with Councilors Weinkauf and Royal dissenting. It's 10 minutes after 9. We've been in session almost an hour and a half again. We'll take a short 10-minute break.
Yes. Oh, I didn't see that you voted on that.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. Councilor Royal pointed out to me when we started the break that I made a major error on the amendment to Councilor Medlin's motion on the no smoking ordinance. I asked all those in favor, looked around and went on and forgot to call for the vote. So all those in favor of the amendment deleting subparagraph A and re-lettering B and C to A and B. All those in favor, please. And all those opposed. Motion carries 3-2 with Councilors Weinkauf and Royal dissenting. I apologize for that error. Next is number 5, added during our agenda portion. Consideration of paying off the fire truck and the ambulances.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor. At our last meeting, we talked about it with our finance director about the loan coming due in October. I know she is working with the banks to try to get some stuff refinanced, but I'd like to make a motion to allow our finance director, when the loan is due, to consult with our town manager and to pay this loan of the fire truck and ambulances off so we can get those off the books and move forward with taking the fire truck and selling it.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Councilor Kaiser. Further discussion, please.
Clarification.
Please.
It's my understanding from our discussion at our last meeting that the finance director will be coming back to us at our October meeting. That would be included, and there was no need to, there was no rush because of that to make any further, for any further action on our part, or hers.
My understanding was that she was going to talk to the banks, try to see what she could do with the loans, but she was not sure the date of the payoff off on the fire truck and ambulances. And if it comes due before we have our next meeting, then we have missed that opportunity to pay the fire truck and ambulances off. So I'm just taking this precautionary measure to try to not have a problem and allow her, if it does come due, for her to go ahead and pay it off. If it does not, then she can bring it back to us.
Well, that's not my understanding of how things stand, and so I will be voting against it.
Councilor Painter, please.
Well, yeah, I guess my understanding was that she was going to look at an array of things, and I mean, I thought the possibility was that there might be another more beneficial thing to do. I'm just asking.
I'll be glad to try to clarify a little bit, and I can see where the confusion is. I believe Councilor Weinkoff's motion is just to have it, it's not time finite. This is just sort of open. I don't need to be putting words. Is that kind of what you had in mind? Where if the opportunity did avail itself to be able to do that, where she would be able to go ahead and pay those items off. Now, Councilwoman Painter is correct in saying that she was wanting to look at array, and I think, and also there as well, where she's wanting to look at an array of things just to see if there was a better opportunity there to be able to refinance a couple of things. We did meet with the bank. She is working with their loan folks for municipalities, and she is working on that. So I'm not sure that this would be any impingement on the ability of looking at various things, but this would just give her the opportunity, if that was the best way to go, is to be able to do that. Does that clarify?
What I was shooting.
And let me say again, if certainly that question was raised at our last meeting, and if there was some concern on the finance director's part that would be an issue, I'm sure it would already have been on our agenda. But we're looking at October, and so that's just where I am on it.
Well, I guess I'm wondering if that would help matters, or help me anyway, if you could just
and
maybe...
By the way, Bonnie isn't here tonight because
she's in Chapel Hill. She's taking the municipal administration course, and this is her first class she's going to.
I guess it would help me if there could, if you might consider amending your motion to say if that is the recommendation of the finance director based on her review. It sounds like to me that, as you stated the motion already, that would lock us in to paying that off, or paying those off.
Well, if you understand, Danny, if you want to describe what this fire truck's doing, and maybe it'll help clarify why we really have to pay this off.
We can't do anything with that fire truck until we can't get it off the books as an asset until we pay it off. It's the title's being held by the loan, and it's just since our last meeting we found out that mounts on the pump on one side have rusted, and the pump's falling down in the frame, so it can't even be run to pump water anymore. It's just sitting there deteriorating as time goes. So I mean, quite honestly, it's an eyesore. I've told them if they're going to leave it sitting outside to cover it with a tarp, because I'm tired of seeing that albatross sitting out back at the station.
Park it in your yard.
I already got one fire truck in my yard.
Well, okay, so that addresses the fire truck, but what about the ambulance?
They're tied into
They're-
the same
they're on the
loan.
same
Tied in together. It's one loan for 3 vehicles.
And I understand all that, but even as odd as this may sound at this point in time, paying it off right now still may not be the right thing to do. And we made a decision last month to wait until October, and I'm still waiting until October to get whatever the finance, well, yeah, regardless, I'd like to see all the information in front of us with the finance director. I don't want to give carte blanche to do that. That's not what we decided last month, and I'm not going to change.
Question, Mr. Weinkauf.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure I understood your motion. Your motion was to authorize, if that loan comes due before our next meeting, to give the town manager and the town finance officer the prerogative to pay it off.
Right.
The
pretty simple.
prerogative to pay it off.
Right.
I mean, if they,
Because Bonnie said at the last meeting that they could only pay it off when there was a payment due. It's already been decided that they needed to pay it off.
When the payment's due.
Right, but she at that time did not know when that, they asked about that, they did not know when the payment was due.
Well, let me say again, I didn't understand anybody to say that somebody had decided that it should be done.
Okay, well, then in with the discussion of the other loan packages that we have, they were discussing loans that could be paid off. So the motion is to give the finance officer and the manager the option of paying off that note before the date of the October Town Council meeting, if the payment is due before that date.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Did we second it?
Yes.
I guess we did. I think I seconded it. Okay. Well, I'm sorry. We just.
Yeah, because
It's not saying that she has to pay it off. It's not saying that
It's like.
if she wants to wait.
Right.
If she wants to wait and bring further recommendations to council, she certainly may. It's giving her the option to pay it off.
Absolutely.
If that is what she wishes.
I think
Okay.
it's basically the authorization, I guess is the word.
Is there?
Right.
The authorization.
prerogative and authorization mean the same thing then.
Giving authorization to the manager and the finance officer to take the step of paying off that note if that is what they determine to be the best thing to do.
Okay,
If the payment due date comes before the October council meeting.
okay,
It's not directing them to pay it off.
okay.
Okay.
Call question, Madam Mayor.
All those in favor, please. All those opposed, please. Motion carries 4-1 with Councilor Royal dissenting. Next is, we go into our new business portion. I read the resolution in memoriam of Councilor Joe Jacquet at the beginning of the meeting. Chair will entertain a motion to adopt the resolution, please.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I make a motion to adopt the resolution in memoriam of Councilor Joe Jacquet, as read previously in the meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second, please? Second by Councilor Medlin. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Next is adoption of a resolution in memoriam of Police Officer David McFadder. This one, I think we spoke about him at the last meeting. Officer McFadder passed away on August 16th of 2013. He was one of our former K-9 officers, and the council is voting for this, will consider voting for this resolution in memoriam. Chair will entertain a motion, please.
Mayor Wallace.
Please.
I would like to make the motion that we approve the resolution in memoriam remembering Officer David McFadder, who is deceased.
Thank you. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Second by Councilor Weinkauf. All those in favor, please. Thank you. And the Stateport pilot, last week's issue, or this week's issue, it's not the next week till tomorrow. They have a great article about him and the pilot. Next is the establishment of the convenience site at the Airport Road facility. Been waiting for this all evening, haven't you, John?
Yeah, good evening. You had an agenda item memo in your packet that described a proposed convenience center that I think would be beneficial for the town to establish at our current facility on Airport Road. Right now, that facility is not being utilized in a public manner, and I think that in lieu of a twice yearly or annual collection of brown and white goods, that we'd be better served to convert that facility to a convenience site where residents on a weekly basis could go out there and drop off brown and white goods, appliances, furniture, at some points or times during the year, household hazardous waste. And while they're out there, we could load them up with a load of mulch for free. So I think it'd be a benefit. It's a change, obviously, in our service delivery method. And I know it's not lost on me the fact that we're talking about establishing a convenience site in lieu of something that seems very convenient, and that's to be able to take anything that you own and throw it out by the side of the street, and we'll come pick it up. And that method has, this being ongoing for some years, has created a lot of problems. And what I'd like to do is I've kind of itemized a few thoughts that I had regarding why I think this method of service delivery would be best for the town over the long haul. And a few of those items are, one is mulch distribution for free, right? I think that'd be a benefit to have that available out there. And having a place not just every 6 months where you can know that the town is going to do a collection service, but every week you could have the availability of a place to take solid waste and manage it properly would be a good thing for residents. And also occasionally on Saturdays. We haven't set up a schedule, and part of what I wanted to do tonight is gain the approval of council to proceed with the planning and implementation of this, where we develop educational materials and schedules, hours of operation, what's accepted, what's not, the volumes of the types of waste that are accepted and what times of the year, all the details. We wanted to make sure to get the blessing before we move forward with all that planning. But we would, and I've discussed this with Dara and Steve as well, I think it's important to have maybe a quarterly, monthly Saturday available because of the transient nature of our community, to make sure that when people are down here on the weekends, they would have the option of utilizing this center or site. The other reasons are code enforcement is another reason. If we go this route, then we know that resident that comes down every 2 or 3 months, and they know that we're doing a brown and white goods pickup, but they're not going to be here that week or that month, and they put it out beside the road, knowing they're going home. And if we go to this method of delivery, if something is on the right-of-way, in the town's right-of-way, it's illegal dumping. There's no question. Mm-hmm. And we can address it that way. The other item is the grapple trucks, the equipment that we use to deliver this service is the same equipment that we use for the yard waste collection. And so what we do twice a year is we go across the entire island, picking up brown and white goods, TVs, computers, and all that. We dump it, commingle it all into the back of a big grapple truck, take it out to the airport now, and dump it out and sort through it. So it's inefficient. Not only that, every day that we do that is a day that we get further behind on the yard waste, which you've probably heard and seen that we've been behind quite a bit. and that adds to it. Not to mention the fact that there are a lot of residents that time their yard work around our schedule so that they can put their limbs and leaves out there, clippings, trimmings, whatever, knowing that we were that week or that within that week or so we're going to be by there. And if we get behind on our schedule, it throws everything off. It kills their sod. It's just not a good situation. And the other thing is those trucks, they're paid for. We do preventative maintenance. We nurse them. We want them to last a long time. They're $150,000 plus piece of equipment. And we have 3 of them, and we want them to last as long as we can. And I think the reduction in the wear and tear and the maintenance and the fuel and all those things that go along with that are a benefit. We would also be able to collect, like I mentioned earlier, household hazardous waste, get it off the island. And finally, I'd like to say that we understand that there are special circumstances and special needs for certain people on the island. We're not lost to that. And as public servants, we'll do what we have to do if there's a situation we need to address an issue as a community member or as a public servant to take care of people that need help. That's just what we do. So with all that said, I just think it's important. I think it's a good move for the town over the long haul to consider consolidation and a method of through this type of service to better manage our waste. And when people come out to drop off their waste, we can properly segregate it in dumpsters at that point in time and assist with that, have somebody there on site to help and make it more efficient.
Madam Mayor.
Please.
I'll make a motion to direct the staff to establish a convenience site at the airport road facility, cease brown and white goods pickup services, and develop informational materials to educate the public on the changes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second, please?
Second?
Second by Councilor Painter. Further discussion, please.
I have a couple of questions, Madam Mayor. John, dumpsters out there, will they be manned or will they just be out there for people to drop stuff off?
They'll be manned.
Okay.
We'll have set hours, and we'll have to have somebody there. Instead of the free dump week like we just talked about earlier tonight, it'll be free dump weekly. But it's part of the fees that we pay every month for this service to be provided. But yes, sir, it'll be staffed so that for safety purposes, as well as to make sure the material is getting to the proper bins.
And the dumpsters we're renting, leasing?
Leasing.
And all that's in our budget already, or is?
I strongly believe that we have dumpsters already out there that we can relocate.
Okay.
We might add 1 or 2, but when you look at the maintenance and the fuel,
okay,
we'll cover all that. Okay.
Yeah. Question for clarification. Was this not part of some of the discussion, or at least some of the materials, Steve, I think that you presented to council even back in March of this year?
We did make a presentation at that point.
And so my understanding all along has been that this would be forthcoming sometime during this year. What concerns me is that we're coming up on free dump in the county next week, and people who have, over the course of the last, I think, 3 cycles, maybe 4, of utilizing the town services, may still be counting on that or continue to do that or just not get the word or what have you. I'm concerned that this transition, and maybe I'm just concerned about nothing, but this transition could have been more smoothly done or in a more timely fashion. And wonder how we're going to work with that if it doesn't.
Well, we've probably had, and I understand what your concern is. We've probably had 10 to 15 calls about when is the date? When can I put out the brown and white goods? And we could, I would advise against, because we're planning and would like to implement this fall. We could go do that, respond on a case-by-case basis, but I wouldn't recommend doing another full cycle of pickups at the same time that we're implementing this.
Again,
and I understand the timing issue.
A timing issue, and again, my understanding from back as far as March is that
I'm not sure it was March. I think it
that
could
we
have been
wouldn't
later
be
than that.
that we wouldn't be doing this in this fall cycle, but there's been no preparation or nothing ready in its place, or no preparation for people to make that transition.
If I could.
Please.
We had a summer that we had a lot of people here, and we had a lot of work to do, and this particular department did a heck of a lot of work. And I don't see they had really the opportunity, the time, nor the resources to be able to get it set up this summer. I think we'll all agree. We had a lot of people down here this summer, and we took a lot of work on. We've had 23 inches of rain that increased the amount of cutting that they had to do, although it wasn't that particular department, but they ended up having to do a little bit on their own as well, too. Point being is that there was not really an opportunity until after Labor Day to really get this program set up. Now, that's where we're at right now. If we go ahead and allow brown goods to be put out on the side of the road, we've made a big dent this past year. At least I like to think we've made a big dent in stuff that's being tossed on the side of the road. And this is the catalyst. Dumping this stuff out is what precipitates and continues to help defeat code enforcement that Josh fights every single day.
I understand.
What happens is this material gets out on the side of the road. Ms. Smith puts hers out. Mr. Jones says, well, I see theirs out, so we're putting ours out. And so by the time Mr. Michaud gets around to pick this thing up, they got a whole new batch that goes out, which totally defeats the purpose of the whole program.
I agree with you. So what can we do to put out information? What resources do we have to put out information to people that we are not going to be picking up this fall?
John, you may know better than I since you've been working here
Well,
for
we've
a while.
got the State Port Pod, Tribune, Channel 8, our phones.
We've got our website, all the normal.
We have
the normal
emailing
venues.
list. So is there something that's already been put together to put in those places to get that information out?
No, but
starting
we can
tomorrow?
do that tomorrow.
Thank you.
Quick comment. I'm one of those that puts out their yard debris. I know, I know when they're supposed to come by, and I know based on when they've come by that you're just now getting back on schedule from the spring pickup.
That's right.
Yeah, just now. So, and I appreciate the offer from the staff to assist anybody that has special needs. We also have a list of about half a dozen contractors. If you ever have someone that needs something picked up and you can't get to it, let me know. We have half a dozen that have offered, and I know that Councilor Painter and her husband last winter actually went out themselves and picked up some.
Madam Mayor, can we call a question? Vote
Please.
on this and move on.
Please.
Got a motion and a second.
All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous. Consideration of reinstating position of recreation program assistant.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to ask that with consensus of council, or if there's a vote that needs to be taken, actually, as it turns out, the way that staff has proposed for dealing with item number 5, I see these two as something that can go together, and I'd like to ask our town manager if item number 4 on the agenda could be incorporated into the review of the total organizational structure of Parks and Rec that he discusses in the memo to us for item number 5. And he seems to be shaking his head yes.
Yeah, I was wanting to go ahead to address, but if I might, Madam Mayor.
Please.
I just want to go ahead and address all of this in one fell swoop. I think there's some reorganizational opportunities, particularly in light of what's happened to CRC. And I think that this is probably a little broader scope issue maybe in just those two items. So I'll certainly be, if that's the wish of the board, pursue this as a larger management study of the recreation / CRC / teen center complex.
But you still indicated that you'd be in a position to bring some preliminary information back at least at our October meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I can do
So
that.
the motion I'd like to make, Madam Mayor, is that we combine items 4 and 5 and direct the town manager to continue with his study of restructuring in the Parks and Rec Department and bring back his recommendations to us in October.
So to clarify, the council would not be directing him to consider, to.
In other words, that would all be encompassed in part of,
Okay.
that would be a part of his consideration for bringing recommendations back to us.
Can I ask for clarification? Would that also include the teen center complex?
includes
and
everything, yes, sir.
Okay. And everything?
Everything.
Okay.
CRC too, right?
And the CRC. Okay. Everything that is supervised by the Parks and Rec supervisor.
Okay.
And
good.
no matter how it's listed on our budget.
Gotcha.
And,
all right.
and again, the whole potential for reorganizing and that position being something to be considered in your reflections and to make a recommendation back to us.
Right.
I second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion, please? All those in favor, please. And all those opposed. Okay, motion carries 4-1 with Councilor Weinkauf dissenting.
Because what it says.
Since we have combined those two items, Chair will entertain a motion to go into closed session, and please state the paragraph.
Madam Mayor,
Please.
I move that we go into closed session to discuss pending and potential litigation pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3.
Have a motion. Do we have a second, please?
Second. The pending cases would be
Please.
the Town of Oak Island versus CSI and LS3P, and Sexton versus the Town of Oak Island.
Thank you. Have a second, please. Councilor Kaiser, second. All those in favor, please. Okay. If you guys will excuse.
Tuesday.
We will call the meeting back to order. Councilor Weinkauf, I'm sorry, please. We will call the meeting back to order. Council took no action during closed session. Does any council member have any council comments, please? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn, please. Thank you, Councilor Medlin. He said so moved. I heard it. Second by Councilor Kaiser. All those in favor, please. And it is unanimous.